Hey guys, this podcast is brought to you by our amazing sponsors. Firstly, Pawtion, dog snacks, treats, 100% natural, single source protein, Australian made and owned. Go to pawtion.com.au. Order now. Use discount code MuscleTalks25 for 25% off your first order and MuscleTalks10 for continued orders. Our next sponsor is the number one Australian supplement company in Australia, Primabolics. Perfect for pre-workout, post-workout, proteins and more. Australian owned, Australian run. Please go to primabolics.com.au and they've been very generous with a discount code MuscleTalks15 for 15% off your order. So go and visit both our sponsors and let's get on with the podcast.
Going into high school, I was once again the sort of, the outlier because I didn't fit in with that whole culture. I didn't know very expensive dinners. I didn't know very expensive holidays. I'd never been overseas at that point. For me, it was a shock going out into the workforce and realizing that, okay, you actually need to work hard in order to get somewhere and your parents aren't going to bail you out of everything because my parents didn't have the money to do that all the time, or the patience, to be honest. It's like, I'm an adult now. I'm getting to the point where I'm 130, 140 kilos. I'm getting close to that period. And then that essentially drove me into a depression because you're comparing yourself to the best in not only your division, but then, the Olympians and whatnot. You start to compare yourself to the likes of them and said, okay, well, I look shit compared to them. I've got more work. I know for a fact that I'm a better person than I used to be.
That's one.
Okay. I'm dedicating more time to try and become a better man, to try and help other people, through business.
Yep.
To try and be better to my parents, to try and be, the man that God wants me to be.
Yeah. Wow. He's born when it was the Sydney Olympics. He's born when I opened up my juice bar. He's born when GSD was introduced. He's also born at a time that I'm going to leave for the podcast. Traditional Greek religious household, ADHD, anger management and more. A bit of a lout and a bit of 140 kilos too. Once upon a time, no interest, no real direction. At 21, no money, no future. Now he banks on calorie banks. Does Amin Suvla has become and will make you become the person you're proud of. If Jay Cutler can do it, George can do it. Sups, legs, shoulders, machines or free weights. Let's find out more. Please help me welcome How Hard Should You Train? RIR 0 to 3, George Varvaressos.
It's a pleasure, Steve.
That was clunky.
That was good.
That was clunky, but I told you, mate, once we start, professionalism goes out the window. How you going? Awesome. All right, mate?
I'm very good, thanks. How are you?
Good to see you. What a gorgeous day outside, huh?
It's a lovely day today. Great day. Very happy to be on the podcast here. I want to thank you for the opportunity and
good, man. Well, let me tell you, you firstly made it very easy for me. Not many people email me their life. And let me tell you, it was probably the happiest and easiest script I had to write the night before because I'll be honest with you, doing the podcast is not a problem. But trying to understand the guests and also learn about the guests, and I don't even know anyone. So I'm going by their social media. So I'm looking at their highlights, and we'll talk about your highlights. What happened to fishing? What happened to you? What happened to motivational quotes? We're going to have to talk about that. But I went through everything. But what you sent me was amazing and actually made me reflect my childhood. But let's firstly start with you're back in the gym recently, but food poisoning. Yes. So, and surprisingly, it made you take a week off. You're deloading, and somehow it's worked to your advantage, I saw on a post. So tell us more.
Yeah, so just over a couple of weeks ago now, unfortunately, I ate something where it could have been a mix of gastro and the food poisoning, but I was really crook for about 2 weeks, and it was just as we came back from our holiday in Queensland. So we just recently went away to Queensland.
Yes.
We've come back. I've gone to IGA, bought some chicken just to prep for the next couple of days because me and my brother, Nick, who's also my business partner,
yes,
we were attending a 3-day marketing seminar for business. And then, I was just going about my normal meal prep. And then 2 days later, I got really sick straight in the middle meal prep straight in the middle of the business seminar. And then I told Nick, I said, mate, something's not right here. I've lost my appetite. And, you know, that's when he knew something was wrong, because my appetite never goes. Everyone knows. Everyone knows how much of an appetite I have to eat food. And, pretty much over the course of the next 5-6 days, I was just pretty much bedbound, couldn't train, couldn't really eat. Dropped about 6 kilos in the course of, you know, that week and a half, 2 weeks. But yeah, it's luckily, you know, that's all done and dusted pretty much now. I'm on the way back up, still not 100%, but I'm just glad to be back in the gym. And it just goes to show how much the gym really holds a significant, you know, sort of place in my life, because as you know yourself, when you get thrown off your routine and what you get used to doing on a daily basis, and you feel like you're missing something, and it's as if something's been sort of ripped out of you.
Yeah, 100%.
And I found it really hard, to be honest. It was probably one of the most mentally challenged times I've actually been since a while ago, which was, like I said, a challenge. But, I got through it. I had to suck it up just like everyone else does that has problems. There's actually an interesting quote by Seth Feroci, you know, who I listen to quite often. And, you know, he always says to people, you don't have problems, just more work to do. You know, for me, I guess this might have been a problem because it was out of my control. I couldn't do anything about it. But in general, I think it's a very good sort of thing to go by, you know, in life, when we have things that we can't really, you know, that we just need to work on in general. So
there is, I mean, wisdom is a good thing, and when you get a little bit older, you get that, but naturally. But like I said to you, you know, I've been there. I've been where, you know, I'm sick and I'm not supposed to train, and I become more sick. I turn up to the gym when I'm not supposed to turn up to the gym. Maybe it's an injury, and the injury is worse. What I found is that the gym doesn't go away, but you can push yourself out the door. And the worst thing that can happen is you do something serious to yourself that in the end you can't go back. So for me, that's my biggest fear. My biggest fear actually is never being able to go back to the gym. So for me, when I'm out, I'm out. I don't go there, because many people say, oh, I've torn a bicep, I've ripped a chest, or I got really sick and I got pneumonia and I got this and I kept getting worse. Like I said, to take, firstly, sometimes, like you said, when you take a step away, look, the body's going to do what it needs to do to fix, but because you're not training, at least the body doesn't have to fix broken muscle. You know what I'm trying? It doesn't have to replenish a workout, because you know the workout is you're destroying.
Correct.
So when you're destroying and then you've got an immune system that's down, what the fuck's your body going to do?
Exactly.
It's very confused.
And that's the conversation I had with my coach as well. You know, he told me, you know, he said, don't train if you're not up for it, if you're not going to recover from it, because you're going to be doing more damage than good. You know, obviously your immune system's been affected, your bowel's been affected, you're not absorbing food. What muscle tissue are you going to break down with then is going to recover properly? You know, it's just not going to happen. It's not feasible. So,
and leaving it for a little while. The great thing is, whatever was your last workout and whatever you've eaten to replenish that muscle, at least you've left it there. So when you're sick, at least your muscles are holding ground in a way, and the rest of your immune system is targeting the food poisoning, the flu, whatever it is that's going on. So that's what I found. And when I talk about my juice bar, which I had a juice bar in the year 2000 when I opened up a health food juice bar. It was a bit like Boost Juice, by the way. And guys used to come and they were sick, like to come and get smooth. I used to make smoothies, right? And they go, and I'd see them, they go, yeah, I'm going to go to the gym. And I'd say, bro, don't go to the gym. I said, you're going to be out for longer. And they go, and trust me, they never came back to work for 5 days because they just blew their immune system out. They were bedridden after that. And the worst is being training and then bedridden. Now that's a real waste of a workout.
Exactly.
It's a waste of muscle recovery. So good to see you back. So we're going to go to, because it says here, go to print off A. Now I'm going to read a little bit if you don't mind. Yeah?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Of course.
Firstly, my name is, but 23rd of the 3rd, 2000. My birthday's 23rd of the 3rd.
Oh, no way.
I'm 23rd of the 3rd, 1969.
Awesome.
So you're an Aries.
Soon.
It's our birthday soon, man. Another 23rd of the 3rd. When I saw that, it's on the same day.
Yeah.
But the year I opened up my juice bar, he was born.
Yeah, me too.
Were you born in 2002?
No, 2000.
Yeah, 2000. Were you born in 2002, meaning not 2002 as well?
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Wow, you too. Yeah, 23rd of the 3rd in 2000. So did you know? Hey guys, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed, who is following us on all platforms, but especially here on YouTube. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, please, if you could do us a big favor, which helps us reach more people, get better, bigger, greater. We've already had some great guests anyway. Everyone's been a treat. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell so you're notified every week a new podcast that is launched. And I just want to say a big thank you. But again, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and enjoy watching Muscle Talks podcasts. You guys know that that's when the Sydney Olympics was on.
Mm-hmm.
And trust me, do you know how pristine the weather was? They set it up for us. It was. We didn't even know about cloud seeding then.
Yeah, yeah.
But let me tell you, Sydney was polished. It was a good time. That's when I opened up my juice bar.
Awesome.
That's when we realised the millennium bug wasn't true. So we did survive it. So you guys, okay, you came out alive.
Yeah.
You know, GST was introduced. But yeah, we share the same birthday. So amazing. So I'm going to go through a few things and I'd like to elaborate a little bit more. So I'll read it right to the end and we'll pick it out a bit, okay? Born and raised Australian, as I was. Traditional Greek religious household. Dad was the first generation migrant from Greece. Yeah, he came when he was 7 and your mum was born here, right? 4 siblings. Yeah?
3.
Oh, you're the oldest
Yeah, I'm the
of 4
oldest, yeah.
siblings. I apologize. Yeah. 4 siblings, oldest, and hardest to raise. Yeah? You were heavily involved in the church community from a young age, learning how to chant and what's it called?
Byzantine school. Yep.
Byzantine hymns. Might get to sing with you today. We won't even. Oh, maybe we'll get. Come on, give us one.
No, I can't.
Let's do. Come on, let's do one together. Which one? Should we do Easter?
Do you know Christos Anesti?
Let's go.
Christos Anesti εκ νεκρών θανάτων πατήσας και της μνήμας.
Wow. Well done. That was great. Chris, we got to sing.
Oh, shocking.
No, that was great. No wonder you did it. But hey, you know, it's a first for our podcast, mate. That's wonderful. Wonderful. We've got Easter coming up soon. That's
right,
the next thing. We had the birth of Christ. Now, unfortunately, the crucifixion of Christ. So church community, church. You went and going to music school for 5 years. Is that with the Greek?
Yes,
music
that was
school?
through the Byzantine school. I did that for 5 years. Yeah.
Yep. You help your dad at Sunday at the with the church choir. From the age of 7 and 8, you were diagnosed with ADHD, ADD, ODD, and issues with anger management. I struggled to make friends at primary school and always felt as though different and matured differently to my peers. I would often find myself getting into trouble, fights, and school suspensions from an early age, despite my parents' best efforts to restrain me. Before we go on, yep, I'll stop there. So let's go on with that one. Tell me about firstly living in a religious household and having anger management. And what did God do wrong in this instant?
It's what did my parents do wrong to deserve that? I think is the right question.
Go on.
Nah, look, yeah, from a young age, I always had more energy. I was a very energetic young child. I knew I had trouble sort of focusing on things that didn't interest me, which I think a lot of children are like that, by the way. You know, I've got my own sort of opinion on how they kind of, you know, how they diagnose kids on this, you know, behavior compendium, if you want to call it that, about what behaviors are considered to be normal and what's not normal.
To be honest, I don't like it. But
I'm not a big fan of it either. But I think that in general, you'll find most children, if they're not interested in something, you know, they're not going to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
In my case, the doctors at that time, you know, they thought that was a case of, you know, ADHD. And there were other things, you know, other behavioral patterns that kind of lean them towards it. But Anyway, as you can imagine, me being that, having that high energy, I had ODD, which was sort of an oppositional defiance disorder. So I had a bit of an issue with authority. So I would always get into arguments with my
God,
parents.
they've given that a name too now. Go on.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, arguments with my parents, arguments with my school teachers, a lot of fights at school.
Okay.
Yeah, I was on medication from a young age as well. And then it got to the point where my parents had me on a bit of a special diet as well to try and eliminate a lot of these behaviors that they thought was coming from food. So I went gluten-free for a while, then I was eating other stuff for a while. It was all a bit of a blur. This was from about 5 years old up until about 10 or so.
Yeah.
And then once I received my first school suspension in public school when I was in year 2.
What was the suspension for?
So I stepped on a bird. There was a bird on the floor in the playground, and then it was already half dead. And me being me, I just went and just jumped straight on top of it and
Of course.
took it out of its misery. And then they
I hope we don't get any activists. Thank God. All right. Just make sure. Go on. Yes.
But yeah, and then they pretty much essentially suspended me for that. So that was an in-home suspension and put me on display in front of the whole school, which my parents weren't happy about at all. But yeah, basically from there it was a lot of fights, a lot of learning difficulties and whatnot. And then it got to the point where, primary school came around, I kept getting into more fights, the behavior pattern started getting a bit more serious, a bit more aggressive. I'd get into fights with my brother, Nick, I used to belt him as a child all the time and things like that. And we're not just talking about brotherly love, we're talking about, proper fights, violence. And then it got to the point where, as I slowly transitioned into becoming an adult, my parents realized it was becoming more and more serious. And at this point, I was also pretty overweight. I was playing sports in school, but I wasn't very athletic at this stage. And then the point where, we bring up religion and sort of, childhood morals is that has always been something that's been instilled in me. Even during those periods of times, I was still going to church. I was still going to Sunday school. I was still.
But let's go a little bit back there. So, when you say religious household, both parents very religious.
Yes.
And your dad was part of the church.
Yes, still is. Yep.
Which church?
Mascot, St. Catherine's.
St. Catherine's. Okay,
Yep.
and still is.
Yep.
And when you went there, like all kids, were you happy to go, or were you quietly not happy to go? Like, was there a little bit of, resistance? Like
when you're young, I think you find it boring. So
yeah, of
it's
course.
like, it's Sunday, we have to go again. It's
Yes,
like
of
you
course.
feel that you're committed, you have to go.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously every child, I don't think, when they're young, that they've got better places to be because they don't realize the significance of the church. But I think in my parents making me go, every week for years, up until a point at least. Now, obviously, when I became an adult, when I became a bit older, they leave it up to me. They said, look, it's your choice. If you want God in your life, He's here. If you're willing to accept Him, He's here for you. But you are a man. You need to be able to be responsible for your own decisions and deal with the consequences of those decisions. And you need to know that God is always going to be there for you, regardless. But you need to be able to come to Him. He's already given you your brain to think. He's already given you, all the scripture, all the examples through the saints and whatnot to be able to follow. Now it's up to you whether you choose to accept Him or not. And that's what was missing for a large period of my life. But we'll jump to that. But back to my childhood. Yes, to answer your question, I was a little bit resilient at first, because it was boring. I'd always run around, create a muck upstairs in the church rooms as well and whatnot. And then the parish priest actually had a chat to me. This really old priest, who's now gone to Mount Athos to become a monk. His name was Father Nicholas. And he told me, he actually spoke to my parents and he said, I'm going to bring him up on the choir stage because he knew, that I was troublesome.
Was he a good minister? Good priest?
Very good. Yeah, okay. He was a very, very saint-like, to be honest. I must say, as, someone who always knew what the answer was. He was always calm. And I could always go to him, for advice.
You'd need that at that age.
100%, yeah. So that's what got me into the whole, sort of church choir thing, and then because I could sort of sing a bit, in the Greek music and, Greek hymns. My dad wanted me to go and learn Byzantine music. He thought it'd be beneficial for me. And it's one of the oldest forms of music that actually exists. So all the notes, it looks like Arabic, the writing. So I did that for about 5 years with my brother as well. And then, I was pretty much raised in the church community. And then it's always been, like I said, a very significant part of my life that then I later neglected when I went through my sort of, period where I left the church for a while and then things started to sort of go wrong for me.
And was it also, being that you were young, because we haven't gone into your high school career, I got your high school SB for next, but was it difficult that you had this wrestle with yourself, because at school it seems like you weren't necessarily understood.
Yep.
You didn't connect.
Yep.
And the reason I say that is that you, like, no flaws of our parents, but with the education system, I don't even know where the education system is today. It's not that bad, and I still believe in the public system. I like the public system. But me too, I was a daydreamer. But I never knew I was a daydreamer till I've looked back and I said, I don't know what I did wrong. They just never let me, because I think you were probably forced to connect and you didn't connect, which created more anger for yourself.
Exactly.
Which in the end made you feel like you didn't have friends, or I'm not saying you didn't have friends, but yeah, there was something that you had to fight for.
Yeah.
And it wasn't your doing, and it wasn't even that you needed medication. You just needed to be understood, and that there are kids that seem academically to connect very well, and then there's kids that do very well with the imagination and creativity, which is music and the church and stuff you're doing. So I suppose it's kind of like you had the church in some ways.
Yeah, 100%. And I think
giving you the weekends on your own wouldn't have been a good thing either.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think
and that was a good discipline,
Yeah, exactly. That's right. And I think it was the start for me of actually having a habit in place, because I'm very big on habits now.
Good. Yeah,
everything I think is built off the foundation of having good habits. And if you don't have those in place,
most definitely.
If you don't have that in place, then there's no goal that's going to be realistic without habits. And that's what I tell a lot of my clients now too. But yeah, I think for me, the church and, having that commitment to go every week, on Sundays to church, and then on the Tuesday night to Byzantine school, it set up a routine for me, which I hadn't had before, because school for me wasn't a routine. I didn't see it as a routine. It's like, oh shit, I have to go to this place. I just have to go deal with it, suck it up. And like you said, I was very misunderstood as well. People didn't understand what I meant by saying things as well. One of the problems with, I guess, being ADHD is that, and I've noticed this too in my adult life as well, I tend to think at 1,000 miles an hour in my head, and then whatever comes out of my mouth just comes out.
Yeah.
And then I expect that person sitting opposite me to understand exactly what I've said in the context that I'm trying to relate in, but they haven't understood that. And then, to me, it's like, oh, what's going on here? So that's something that I've had to try and nurture and to improve as an adult, to slow down a bit, just calm my brain down, stop all the neurons from firing 1,000,000 miles an hour, and just think before I say something, and think about how I'm going to formulate that sentence, get my point across, etc. But yes, I definitely think that having that sort of routine with the church has definitely helped in me building the habits that I have today. But transitioning into my, sort of high school period, the problems continued, but I had sports. So I was very fortunate that my parents were able to send me to a very good school. I went to Trinity Grammar, where they were very sort of structured and disciplined with all disciplines, sport, athletics, academics. They offered both the HSC and the IB. There is, the two academic pathways. Me, I wasn't an academic at all, as we've already...
But wait a minute, before you go to high school, I want to know, have you got over the bird? Does the bird still get to you?
Oh, no, not really. I don't even think about it.
I don't know, you brought up the bird, mate. Maybe it's a thing. Like, I just want to know, have you got over the bird?
The only reason why that memory...
He's got over the bird just in case, what's it called? Wires will rescue people. He feels for the bird. He's got over the bird.
Yeah.
Now, have you got over the bird?
I've repented for it, yeah.
The bird. And I wanted to ask, because we are literally, you're half my age. So I was 31 when you were born. I think I was 31 when you were born. Just thinking, or 30, one of the two. You gonna do some Greek coffees today? Yeah. And was there bullying at your school?
There was actually, at my primary school, there was still a bit of racism.
I want to ask
So even though, you know, that sort of whole era you'd think would be phased out.
Yeah.
The era that I went to as well, you know, Mascot
Because I'm
Public
listening
School.
to you guys and you're
Yeah.
still bringing up, like, people in general.
Yeah.
I'm listening and I thought it was just our era.
Mm.
I thought by you know the year 2000
Yeah.
that would have been cleaning up by then, but no.
Yeah, no, it still existed. So I went to school, but demographics in my area,
Because the
you know,
70s and
Mascot-
80s was
Yeah.
bad for
Yeah, I
racism.
can imagine. Well, my dad
90s,
copped it.
yeah, your dad would have copped it. I
Yeah.
know.
He went to school with Scott Morrison, actually. He was in his U group.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, did you which
Sydney
area?
Boys High School.
Okay.
Selective school, yeah. So he got into there. But yeah, there was in primary, from kindergarten to U2 at the public school that I was at in Mascot, the demographics there was very, you know, Aussie, you know, a lot of Aboriginal kids. There were a lot of people, a lot of parents who were in housing commission that sent their kids there. There were a lot more troubled kids than, you know, me and my behavioural issues. A lot more, you know, kids with serious disabilities, things like that. And as you can imagine, you know, when you throw me in that mix as well, being, you know, being a sort of bigger, heavier set wog who's got a loud mouth, you know.
No wonder you had to fight.
Exactly, that's the thing. So, you know, but I always knew, even some of the staff there, you know, I felt, you know, were a little bit sort of more, you know, what would you say? They would favour the white boys a bit more, you know, or the Aussies a bit more than, you know, the wogs or, you know, other people.
Yeah.
They always took care of all the Aboriginal kids, of course, but anyway, I felt that sense of, you know, the wogs, the Greeks, the Italians, the Lebos.
Mate, I used to get in trouble and I didn't even know I was in trouble. I'm being honest with you. Like, racism was rife. But I think, and I'll bet my money on this as well, and then we'll get into the next question. But it's funny when I listen to the poor me stories right now, like everyone's complaining about what's going on at school, what they've been called, what's happening. Yeah. But I don't know about you, but all I know is when I went to school with all the racism being called the wog, and then my dad going to work and all the racism being called the wog. Do you know when we used to come home, we never spoke about it? Isn't it? Did you notice that too? We never spoke about it. We just ate at the table with the Last Supper above the table.
Yep.
We'd watch late night TV.
Yep.
And we just fucking grin at it. But no one asked. No one complained about it at home. Did you notice that when you grew up?
100%.
We just went into battle every day.
Exactly.
But now it's like parents are involved. That person's involved. You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
100%. I think, but now it's the other extreme. I think, you know, the pendulum has completely swung the other way where, you know, with the smallest thing, you know, in Greek we say meto para mikro, you know, they will try and make an issue out of nothing just because they want to be in the spotlight. They want to play the victim card. And that's a massive thing with adolescents nowadays, with kids. That's why I'm of the opinion that a lot of kids have gone soft nowadays. You know, the whole thing where you can't even lay one finger on your kid to you know, to discipline them and things like that. It's like, hang on a second. Yes, you know, I may have copped a couple of well-deserved beltings when I was young, but I feared my parents because of that. And, you know, I respected them. It's not about being scared, that type of fear. It's about you're scared to cross them the wrong way because of, you know, because the respect that they deserve. And that's only something that I notice now as I'm an adult. We don't notice these things, as I'm sure you would, you know, when you're kids, I can get away with anything. I can do whatever I want. But now as we grow up, you know, you realize how much respect your parents actually deserve because of all the hardships they went through as first generation migrants, as working class citizens, you know, because my parents are both working class. My dad didn't, you know, he wasn't one of those lucky Greeks that came off the boat, bought a house, you know, in Point Piper for 20 grand 40 years ago, you know, or in Allwood now that's worth millions. His dad was in the Navy, you know, my papa was in the Navy, you know, so they came over here, then he worked in restaurants, just working class, worked for the paper factory, the newspapers, things like that. So even though I've always been blessed to have a roof over my head and my parents have given me everything I've ever required and have provided for me and my siblings, we've had to work, essentially. You know, I had to start working when I was 16. My dad was working from a young age. And
what did you do at 16?
So I started, this was in high school, I started my first work experience working in the hospitality industry. So I worked at a steakhouse because I did vocational courses in my HSC. So I did hospitality, I did pizza delivery driving, I also did construction as well. I did a 2-year traineeship in construction from 16 up until.
But did you have a casual job? Did you have a casual job?
While I was in school, I didn't have. Well, yes, during the holidays I would work my traineeship. Yes, when I was 16. So I started when I was 16. So during all the school holidays, I'd be working. And then summer holidays up until a point as well. And then, you know, we'd try and go to Queensland every year with the family or something just to get away for a bit. But yeah, I started working when I was 16. And it was a shock. It was
I was Coles parcel pickup.
Yep.
I work at Coles. There
Yep.
used to be a parcel pickup. And that was, I still can't remember how I got the job. I think, how did I get this job? I can't remember anything from the past.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump a little bit, then I'm going to come back. Still got strong religion in you now?
It's to
Where are
the
you now
point. It's to the point now where it's sort of coming. You know, it's doing the full loop.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So I had stepped away from the church for a while, from about, you know, sort of 19 to about, you know, 21, 22.
Of course.
And then from about 22 up until now, even though I haven't gone to church as often, because it's I know I say it's hard for me to go to church, but I shouldn't be saying that, because I should make it a priority. But because I'm so busy now with, you know, working a full-time job, and I have clients on the side, all my clients do their check-ins on Sundays. I do a lot of my business and content stuff on Sundays as well. So it's hard for me to actually, thank you.
You drink good coffee?
Yes, thank you very much.
Or is it Macedonian coffee? Or is it Turkey
it's
guy? I
Greek
don't
coffee,
know.
that's
Greek
it.
coffee.
It's hard for me to dedicate the time, even though I should be doing it. It's something that I'm working towards. I want to try and, you know, go at least once a month if I can. Because every time I do go, and when I did go recently 3-4 weeks ago, whenever the last time I went was, I genuinely felt at peace, you know, other than the gym. And the gym has been the only place that I've taught myself to give myself peace, which is, you know, where I'm sure you and every other person that trains religiously, you know, shares the same opinion. Church also gives me that. And because church is spiritual to me, you know, and it's the only place where I can truly achieve, you know, that spirituality. Thank you. I do want to make it more of a priority. But it has started to come, you know, a full 360 to answer your question. You know, it's from completely disregarding it. You know, I'm blaming God for all my problems.
Yeah,
you
we've
know,
got to have
why
some
me?
to blame.
Yeah.
God's good for an argument, mate.
Yeah,
if
that's
anyone's
it.
going to sit there and argue with you, it's God. But, you know, I didn't go this week, but I try to go to church every Sunday now. And I use it, I mean, besides, I call it my hour of power.
Yep.
And the reason I call it my hour of power is I get to sit, and when I listen to the sermon, I get to reflect on my week, the sinner I was, and then I can build up to come in strong for the next week. So every hour on a Sunday, I go, all right, let's reflect and build.
It's like your recharge button. It honestly is.
And you need it, and people don't find it.
That's right. It's like you wipe the slate clean and then you start again. And I actually feel fresh going into the new week. You know, so it's something that I think is very significant. And I think a lot of people that unfortunately haven't found Christ yet, or haven't found, you know, a form of God yet, you know, that's really what they're missing. You know, I think it's the foundation of all relationships. I think it's the foundation of business. I think it's the foundation of everything. If you don't have that, you know, that foundational faith, you know, in a higher power, then I think it's going to be very hard for you to find justification, you know, in a lot of the things that you do, and, you know.
Well, I'll tell you something, how I see religion Firstly, I think we can't bank on ourselves. That's one thing we can't do. We can't bank on ourselves. I'm telling you, no one can. But I'll give you an example why we need a higher power. Now, me and you, we have God, right? That's obviously a fact. Some people have Mother Nature, the universe, whatever. I think it's, regardless with them, I think we need a higher power. We need a higher power. And I'll give you an example why higher power works. Because when you're going to do something, the only reason you do it or don't do it is because of the higher power. And I'm going to show you where the higher power starts. When you're a kid, you're just a kid, and you went to the lolly shop, or you went to the shop, and your mate sat next to you, mate, these lollies are near the door. Let's grab some lollies and go. And you thought about it. And I'm assuming you didn't take them, right? Do you know why you didn't take them? It's a question, but I'm not saying you have the answer, but do you know why you didn't take them?
It's the guilty subconscious, I think, which comes from the higher power.
Yeah, but do you know who the higher power is at that age? Your parents.
No. Well, yeah.
But wait a minute. Are they in the room?
No, they're not.
Will they ever see it?
No.
But you didn't take it because of them. That's God. So when we're adults, if we don't have parents, we need a parent.
100%.
So at 55, when I'm thinking of lying to you, who am I going to turn to? Who's going to know I lied? who's not, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yep.
So your
Yep.
parents weren't at the shop, but you go, I'm going to get screwed if I take these. But they're not there. They won't see it.
Yeah.
But you didn't take it because they distilled some strength in you.
Yeah.
So this is what God is like when you get older.
Yeah.
You need a parent. We need parents right to the end.
100%.
So anyway, that's my story.
Yeah, no, that's a great example too. And I think that interlinks very well with what we said before about having that foundation as a child, because even though you might lose it for a period of time,
Right.
it's always going to be there for you to come back to.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. My mum went every Sunday. I wasn't in the choir. I didn't go to church. I did enjoy it. But I question God relentlessly, I argue with him relentlessly.
Yeah, as do I.
But I'm very grateful I can argue with him.
Yeah.
That's all I'm grateful for, because if I'm going to argue with you and people, well, it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
So at least I got this, and he who firstly can handle everything, he makes me handle everything. So at the end of the day, we have a tussle. We have it, but at least I always can say thank you to him when things are good. But when things go bad, I'm so glad I can go to him and argue, because I don't want to argue with anyone else. I just want to argue with him, and I want to bless him.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good thing. So one of your other latest posts, tell us about this eating out, losing weight, and calorie banking.
Ah, yes.
What is it? I've seen this. I did not know that we had banks called calories.
Yeah, so
So tell me about this calorie banking.
So essentially, that little system is the right. It's been around for quite a bit. A lot of coaches will talk about it. But essentially, it's pretty much what your total daily energy intake is that's required for you to either be in a deficit or maintain. And let's take the number that I used in the reel, for example, 2,500 calories.
Yeah.
So your body, Steve, requires 2,500 calories in order for you to maintain a 20% deficit, so you can lose half a kilo each week, whatever it is. Now that 2,500 calories per day, if you decrease that by even a couple of hundred calories per day, right? So you're eating even more than that, right? You're still going to lose more weight if you do that. But if you want to eat a meal out that's going to be enjoyable, that's going to be off plan, that's not going to be bland chicken and rice or whatever your coach or yourself have in your meal plan for you, you can save those calories to use at a later date.
Okay, yeah.
Because we calculate your total daily energy expenditure over the total week. That's why when we talk about weight averages, we work on the weekly average. When we make adjustments, to clients' nutritionist plans, to, plans requiring further deficit, surplus, whatever. We go off the weekly data average.
Yeah.
So when we talk about calorie banking, it's a pretty good concept in the fact that it allows for flexible dieting. So you don't have to stick to, your relentless same food every single day, day in, day out. It allows you to have a bit more, flexibility with your life. If you want to go out on a date, if you want to go out for a dinner, if you want to have a souvla with the family, whatever the occasion might be. And that's something that I use more in the off season, because when we're in prep, it's a different story.
Yeah.
But it's more for those who don't feel like they're going to be able to maintain to, a regimented, very strict plan 7 days a week. And the majority of people don't have to, because the majority of people don't want to be bodybuilders. The majority of people that do need to lose weight, they need to have an element of flexibility to it, something that's going to allow them to fit within their lifestyle and they still stick within their goal parameters, obviously. But they need to be able to live, because at the end of the day, we all enjoy food. A lot of us enjoy alcohol. I personally don't drink, but a lot of people enjoy alcohol. And you can't tell them as a coach or someone that they might be paying, you can never have this again, because it's not realistic, and we're not going to stick to that goal. So calorie banking is a great way to sort of, save up those calories to use, whether it's that same day, I'm on a fast for half the day and then consume my calories at night, being at whatever it is, a big steak, a barbecue dinner, whatever, or I can take away, 200 calories from each meal. For some people, that could be as little as 2 coffees a day. If you don't have 2 coffees a day, 2 large full cream milk coffees are about 100 calories each. So if you have 2 of those a day, there's your 200 calories.
What's 200 calories?
2 large full cream milk coffees would be about 100 calories each.
Okay.
So if you're having 2 of those a day, that's your 200 calories saved for the day that you don't, if you can go without it, or have a black coffee, which is 0 calories. Yeah. And then if you do that for 5 days, then you've got 1,000 calories in the bank for, you've got 1,000 calories in the bank for the weekend for what you want to eat. So it's a smart way that you can, essentially bank your calories and then get to enjoy a good meal.
I've also discovered recently, isn't it funny? You're always discovering stuff in training and food and diet. When you eat something, let's say you have fucking this big greasy burger.
Yeah.
Let's say you have 2 big chips, and you know you've gone home busted. Like,
Yeah.
You automatically think you just put on weight, right? But someone said, I can't remember who it was, but where I heard it was, so let's say now you ate lean chicken and rice. That night, did you put on muscle? No. So how did you get fat overnight? So everyone looks at that instant meal, we blow it out like it's the end of the world. Meaning, of course, we've got to get back on track tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how we can automatically think we're fat or it's fattening.
Yep.
And that's why I'll let you know with food, I actually, not to say I do prayers, but I bless my food. If I'm going to what's the word I was looking for? If I'm going to curse my food. So I never say this food's going to make me fat.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Because you just told your brain it's going to make you fat. Guess what your brain does? It's a processor. Because it's saying, I'm listening to you. I'm even hear you talking to yourself.
Yeah.
So when I know I've eaten something not that good, I always go, oh, this food's got, I guarantee you there's proteins and carbs that my body needs. It's going to grab it, and whatever it doesn't want, I'm going to bless it out of my body. So it's really giving blessing to the food, even when it's not good food. But if you ever gone out, I don't know about you, this calorie banking, I hear you're calorie banking, but if you've ever gone out where you've eaten something, you've gone to dinner, and I don't want to blame the Lebanese for the kebabs because I like kebabs, but even though the gyros is better, but let's talk about kebabs. Or we'll call it, but you know when you've gone out and you've eaten a kebab, but it just didn't hit the spot.
Yeah.
And you go home and you still make a steak because you need the protein.
Yeah.
Have you forgot? Do you ever sometimes eat out and you go, that wasn't enough, even though you ate too much, and it was your cheat night? You go, oh, you know, what the hell? I'm going to have my steak still. So
I think that's the problem when you talk about hyper palatable foods like you know your kebabs, your pizzas, you know McDonald's, things like that. These things all taste amazing, and I think another reason why that's commonly associated with, you know, weight gain straight away because you get home feeling bloated or you get home feeling full when you have these, you know, these foods is because they contain usually such a high sodium and fat content where your body's just going to soak it all up like water, like a sponge. And it's going to hold on to that for a couple of days. So even though the scales might jump up overnight, you know, it's not going to be, in a couple of days' time, if you get back on plan and consume what you're meant to consume, it's going to level itself out. But when you talk about, you know, sort of cheat meals and stuff like that, you know, like for me, especially in the off season, I don't mind. Like I'm actually an advocate for going out and enjoying a decent meal, provided, you know, for me, I still like to make sure it has high protein. So if I'm going out, you know, kebab or the meat only option for a kebab is actually a decent option.
That's a top option.
You know, if you get a snack pack and you say no chips, just give me all the meat, you know, and a bit of sauce on there. That's actually not too bad from a protein intake, you know.
Top meal, man.
Yeah, you can talk about the oils and all the rubbish and what they're fried, but you know, it's at the end of the day.
I don't want to know all that. I just want to know.
If I want to have a fucking kebab, you know.
That's. But I find, but the thing is as well, I found, and I've known this for decades, I've even told it to my kids, where we all get it wrong. So you have, from what I understand, what I read, you have a Monday to Friday job, right? 9 to 5. I'm assuming that, right?
So I manage a supplement store at the moment. Yeah,
but it's not, but let's just say Monday to Friday.
Yeah, let's call it that.
Let's say someone's an accountant in IT, in the city. It's your fault if you're having laxes every fucking day for lunchtime. It's your fault.
Exactly.
Because during 9 to 5 and your Monday to Friday, that's when you should be your cleanest. That's when you're that's when it's chicken and rice. Because on the weekend, who wants to get up in the morning and not go have bacon and eggs? On a Saturday when you've done all that hard work. But if you're having bacon and eggs, even though it's a good meal, I'm just trying to say to you, but you're having, you know, Kentucky Fried Chicken, or you're having a Southern burger during the week. What I'm trying to say, I'm not saying you can't have that, but what I mean is there are moments where you're alone, but there are moments where you're going with your mates, your girlfriend, you're visiting. You don't want to sit there and go, oh man, I can't. I mean, different if you're in prep, but not everyone's doing competition. But you want to know.
Look, I think it's about just having an overall structure and a discipline with your food. You know, regardless whether you're going out or not, just being able to plan ahead. I think planning ahead and, you know, lack of planning ahead is where people find themselves putting on weight or overdoing it. So all these foods that we've talked about, you know, kebabs, macas, you know, restaurant dinners, you know, whatever it is, just foods that aren't your typical chicken and rice bodybuilding hardcore foods, you know, or not considered, you know, healthy foods. they're all okay to have, but you need to be able to plan for them and make sure that even when you are having them, so if you are staying strict Monday to Friday throughout the week, even though you're consuming, you're consuming that, what's that term that we use for those types of foods? It won't come to me, but those foods that discretionary foods, right? The discretionary foods. When you're going to consume them over the weekend, you still need to make sure that you're not over-consuming over your daily expenditure.
Yeah.
So don't have all your meals worth of chicken and rice during the day and then have Maccas on top.
Yeah.
It's if you're going to go out to eat at night, if you're going to go have a kebab with the boys, if you're going to go to the restaurant or a barbecue, eat small during the day, earlier in the day.
100%.
Have a couple of eggs, without the bacon, or have one slice of sourdough toast instead of 2 slices of sourdough toast. And then that way you've, again, banked yourself calories throughout that day. So then when you go out at night, you can have a couple of drinks and have, a kebab, whatever, and not have to worry about it. It's what, like you said, when you're constantly snacking throughout the week, and I had this a lot at my previous job. So I used to work a government job before this for a while. And one of the reasons why I left is because, the whole culture there and, everything.
Right.
Look, I've still got some friends.
It's beers and donuts.
I've still got some friends there, so I don't want to talk too much shit about the department. But the point is
They don't
that
watch this podcast.
yeah, probably not. But yeah, the culture
hang on,
there.
it's 10:30. We're gonna have morning tea.
Yeah, that's right.
Can we stop for half an hour?
Yeah,
no one's
right.
working. Government job. Stop.
Exactly.
Everyone stop.
Exactly.
Chris, can we have some donuts, please?
Yeah, 100%. Then a 10 meeting, talk about everyone's feelings. But yeah, essentially, every time, we'd have one of those, morning teas or events or whatever, everything that would be laid out at the table would be junk food. And every single person would be the first, straight away, no, but this, no, but that. And that's on top of their lunch, on top of their dinner, whatever. So they're having all these little snacks throughout the day. And I'm sitting there watching in all. Like once, I remember we cut a cake for someone's birthday at 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
At 7:30 in the morning, we're having a full-blown cake, just spike the shit out of your blood sugar. Yeah. And I'm sitting there eating my egg white omelette, right? And everyone's looking at me and saying, why don't you have some cake? Why don't you have some? This is like, look, this is what I'm doing. Like, that this is what the path that I'm on. Just fucking have your cake if you want. I don't want any, like, whatever. And look, most of them now, like I said, a lot of them are my friends now, and most of them understand, but it was a bit awkward at first when I'm walking in there with my meal prep bag, I've got my chicken and rice and my rump steak and rice and, my eggs. And
you guys can, like, you can do it now. We used to get bagged. I used to read the labels years ago, and my ex-wife used to go, "Can you stop reading the labels?" And I said, "No, I used to go, this tuna only has 63% tuna. This one has 72. I want the 72% tuna. This one is." We didn't know calories back then. There wasn't big calorie counts back then. But I'll tell you what else I've done. I usually know if it's home cooked, it's not fattening. So when I go to someone's house,
if mum cooked it, the calories don't count.
There's no calories, mate.
Yeah.
There's none.
Yeah.
Because I know, because when I go to somewhere and I see them and I sit down, they go and they bring out like say choc chip cookies, but I see them open up the Coles no name brand. And they're putting on the plate. I go, fuck, I ain't eating that shit. But then when they put the cookies down, first thing I'm thinking is, I'm not eating that shit. And they go, and she goes, I made them. Okay.
Yeah.
I go, this is because I always think
love.
Because love, exactly. I'm thinking there's love, and I need it. So I go, I'll have that cookie.
Exactly.
But when I see them opening up the packets, I go, yeah, right. As if I'm going to fucking eat that shit.
I'm like that with mum's spanakopita though. She makes it twice a year. Over Easter and Christmas, she makes about 4 or 5 massive
Easter. I'm coming around.
Yeah. And I smash
birthday.
a whole one to myself easily over the course of the few days, and it's the best.
We'll be talking about the double bicep pose with the silver there. We're gonna. So all right, let's go to B now. It says go to B. So you were fortunate enough that you probably mentioned, so we don't probably have to go long in this, but we're going to say I was fortunate enough to be sent to a very good private school, Trinity Grammar, where my parents sacrificed a lot. Man, they would have to send you to that kind of school. You were extremely restless, and by year 10, you stopped taking your medication, ADHD medication, which I think is cool anyway, and you started getting into a lot of trouble. I knew that the academic pathway wasn't for you. You were passionate about sports and training, playing cricket, rugby union, and tennis, obviously at a young age. I quickly found myself in the school gym at the age of 14, introduced to weights, part of the rugby training. My diet, however, was non-existent. I would train hard, but always eat junk food and sweets. I mean, who doesn't at that age? I mean, it's very hard. I mean, I've got kids, and it's very hard to implement things, even though the only thing and by year 11, I sustained a back injury, which made you stop playing rugby league due to ego lifting. we talk, ego lifting, downward spiral. I quickly graduated. You were at 120 kilos. At this stage, I was looking at a career in construction, plumbing. You did a vocational course at school and thought only the future for me was to be in trade. Let's talk about that. But, between me and Giselle, I'll say that's her name, not call her ex, right? And my kids. It's funny because there was a stage where my kids said to me, no more chicken and rice, please. Please. Like they did the crucifix to me.
Yeah.
No more chicken and rice. Like my son, I've had enough of chicken and rice.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I think I've distilled some patterns in them, but I've seen them not do well with diets.
Yep.
Still to today. But the funniest thing is when we were growing up, it was so funny. Like we'd go out and we'd buy, say that they bought gelatos in the cone. The funniest thing is they used to go like this. Do you want some, Dad?
Yeah.
And I go, no, I don't want any. But they never asked their mum because she'd eat it.
Yeah.
Even though it worked out, they go, nah, the healthy bloke over here, he's going to say no. But we're going to seem like we're generous. We'll go to that guy because he doesn't take any.
Yeah.
But so tell us about one, ego lifting, touching weights at the age of 14. Tell us a little bit about the 120 kilos. Yeah. I was 120 kilos. And this is the thing, man. I was close to 120 kilos just 2 years ago, man. I think Chris met me that way. And it's funny, everyone looks at me now and they think that I was the fat guy. And I said, no, you just met the fat guy.
Yeah.
The fat guy was just, I said, in my life, he's come twice. I mean, when I was in my young age, I was fat, but not my teens, but he's come twice. He came in the 40s. He thought he'd visit everyone, the fat guy. And in the 50s, he thought he'd do like a little sequel. Just a guest appearance sequel, but we're not bringing this bloke back.
Yeah.
So anyway, tell us about, high school pathway.
Yeah, so I was always a bigger kid, so even from young, like
you're a big kid now.
When my parents, were putting me through all those different diets, my first instinct was to rebel. Rebel. Nah, fuck that. I don't want to do that. I want to eat whatever I want.
You don't look like a rebellious guy, man.
Yeah, well,
you're a smiling assassin.
A lot's changed. A lot's changed over the last couple of years.
Yes.
But yeah, look, I always had binging tendencies, so I've got a very addictive personality. I used to be a chain smoker up until 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
I started smoking when I was in school. So when I was 15, when I was 14, when we went to Greece with the family for the first time, I picked up a cigarette for the first time. We went and visited some families, a family friend's house in the village there, and I went and opened up the cupboards, and then I found a packet of cigarettes, and then I smoked one. So I coughed my lungs out. It was the worst taste in the world. But then I got offered one at work, and when I was working the vocational courses on the trade, on the construction sites, everyone was smoking. It became, it was a culture, and I embodied that. So, and I loved it. The nicotine here.
I got hooked on smoking.
Yeah.
I could casually smoke.
Yeah.
I could have a drink and casually smoke, and I was never hooked, right? And I was super clean, not even alcohol, nothing. Like I said, but at the age of 44, when my marriage broke, I got hooked on smoking.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it was the first time in my life, and I stopped smoking at 51.
Yeah.
So I smoked for nearly 10 years.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I said to myself, I have an addiction. I never knew what addiction was. Like nothing had me.
Yeah.
But smoking, my God, I used to get up in the morning, man, go sit outside beside the pool chairs.
It's habit.
And I needed 2 cigarettes with a turkico.
Yeah.
And I was hoping the cigarette would take forever, so my whole day didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And then I was champion at rollies.
Yeah.
Sit there with my rollies, smoking. But I'm so glad I don't smoke now, man. And
it's habit. Like with everything, like with building good habits, we can also build bad habits. And
I couldn't believe addiction, man.
We're very habitual creatures. So, and if you have an addictive personality, which me and you probably,
no more you.
Share, which I definitely have, then
I don't have it.
But
the smoking surprised me.
Yeah.
That got me.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck?
So that started, when I was about 15. Properly when I was 16, I was bringing cigarettes to school. I was going out lunchtime out for cigarettes. Things like that. But anyway, backtracking, I was always a heavier set kid, a bigger kid. So I was sort of chubby throughout all of, primary school, and then into high school. And then it got really bad when my parents actually gave me access to, so we had canteen cards because we wouldn't pay with cash at the canteen, we'd pay with, our student cards, and that was just attached to my dad's credit card, and I went there, sit there tapping it like an idiot, and he lost it at me, right? He didn't even know how much I was spending. Anyway, and I was eating all the wrong foods. I was getting cupcakes at 8 o'clock in the morning, the dare iced coffees, chocolate milks. I'm smashing about 2,000 calories before
How
recess.
good is a dare iced chocolate with a chocolate donut?
I haven't had one in about 5
We're going
years.
to do it after the podcast. We're going to go have a dare and a fucking chocolate donut at the same time. And, you take a bite and fucking take the milk and all of it together go on.
All the consistency gels. But so I got introduced to the gym at about 14 when I was playing rugby. So they had this thing called like the Rugby Premier Squad at my school. So all the upcoming players and stuff, they'd put them into a program in the gym, and then we'd consistently train. I think it was 2 gym sessions a week, and then we'd do 2 cardio sessions a week. Something like that too. It was all before school as well. So I'd get to the gym at 6:30 in the morning, and then that was the start of creating another habit for me, which I kept going for a while. So that started at 14, and then I started, sort of falling in love with lifting heavy. I loved lifting heavy. Yeah. One thing that I noticed about myself compared to the other kids was that I was naturally strong. I had this strength. I could deadlift very heavy. I could squat fairly heavy. My form was hopeless, but the weight would move. I didn't know how to do proper form. Yeah, of course. When I injured my back in 2015, it was leg pressing about 500 kilos, and I was 15 years old when I did that. So, and the reps weren't actually that bad. So it was quite surprised. I was surprised at myself, and I'm like, okay, this is fun. All the testosterone started raging through my body when you start lifting weights, and I'm like, okay, sick.
People think you're a champion.
Yeah, I found something that I'm actually passionate about. I had the school bench press record as well for a while, which was fun. But anyway, so I got into training, through that avenue, through rugby training and whatnot, and, the boys at school that, were into it as well. And I used to look up to some of the bigger boys as well. When I was in year 7, year 8, I used to look at some of the year 12s and think, fuck, they're giants. Like, I want to look like that. Yeah. So, I fell in love with lifting weights in whatever form. I just go in there, do some bicep curls, do some dumbbell, some bench press, whatever during lunch. In my school, in my uniform, in my full suit and my tie. Just go in there and lift, go back to class sweaty, stinking like a pig, but I didn't care. But the problem is, I didn't have any foundational nutrition plan to go with that at all. So any work that I was doing in the gym, you couldn't see it. Under all the layers of fat, maybe like you could tell that I had strength, but I looked more like an obese powerlifter than I did, someone that trains for hypertrophy, which was what I wanted to do. Yeah. And then as I continued getting stronger in the gym, I continued playing rugby. When I had my back injury in rugby, I had a scrum collapse on me, and then I did my L4 or L5, so my disc was bulging for a
then you got sciatica.
Well, it's
shooting down the leg.
Exactly. So I dealt with that on and off for a while. So I couldn't continue playing rugby after that, and then I kept on aggravating in the gym. And then when I ended up leaving school, I stopped training altogether because I didn't have that habit. I didn't have that routine in there anymore. I didn't have my rugby coach tell me, "Oh, George, Tuesday, Thursday morning, 6:30 a.m. be at the gym." I didn't have anyone, any authority figure to hold me accountable. So when I started working my first job, I only stuck to plumbing for a couple of months, by the way, before I went and got a full-time job at the airport, working as a baggage handler for Qantas. Yeah. So I was there for 5 years, and the culture there was just, smoking, eat whatever you want.
It's a tough gig.
Yeah, it's, don't get me wrong, the camaraderie in there, like the boys, all the Greeks, all the Wogs that were in there, I loved it. Because we got in with all the old school blokes like yourself, just that old school mentality, no shits given, just, pay out everyone else, all the Wogs stay together. It was mad. Like, I had a good time there. But in terms of looking out for my own personal health, it was all over the shop. And then during that time as well, I went and got a loan for a car, for a Hilux, which I couldn't afford to pay back because I was earning fuck all money at Qantas. I was getting paid $600 a week. And the loan repayments were $300 a week. So half my wage was going to paying the car back and then insurance and whatnot. And then the other half I was spending on food. So at home, I was basically living off my parents and I was an adult. So I was going nowhere faster than I'm looking on social media, all my rich school friends, whose parents had bought them cars, and they're all working for their parents' businesses and whatnot. And I'm sitting there trying to compete with that because I'm thinking, I should be as far as these guys are because, I went to school with the 1%, of Sydney. Yeah. I got exposed to that, how the other side living, and I was the outlier in that again as well. So even, from, primary school, going into high school, I was once again the sort of, the outlier because I didn't fit in with that whole culture. I didn't know very expensive dinners. I didn't know very expensive holidays. I'd never been overseas at that point. So, for me, it was a shock going out into the workforce and realizing that, okay, you actually need to work hard in order to get somewhere, and your parents aren't going to bail you out of everything, because my parents didn't have the money to do that, or the time, or the patience, to be honest. It's like, I'm an adult now. I'm getting to the point where I'm 130, 140 kilos. I'm getting close to that period. And then that essentially drove me into a depression. So I was mentally, pretty fucked up for about 2 or 3 years. When I found out we were going to be made redundant from Qantas back in 2021, that's when we got made redundant. That whole period there from about 2020 up until 2022, I started hanging around with some pretty questionable circles.
That was the COVID period, wasn't
it?
That
was the COVID period.
Yeah,
so it was actually funny because 2 things happened during that COVID period. So before that, from 2019 to 2021 was when I drove myself into that sort of depression, because I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
I wasn't interested in anything. I wasn't training. I wasn't eating properly. It was just, I'm doing whatever the hell I want, whenever the hell I feel like it, and I can't afford to do it. So I was pretty much just acting like a privileged little shit. And I can say that now because, that's essentially what I was doing. I was just acting like a privileged little shit that thought I was entitled to anything. And then that sort of transpired into me hanging around some questionable circles. So I started getting involved in a lot of street stuff. I started hanging around, a lot of people that were involved in drugs. I was partying excessively, drinking excessively, a lot of drugs, a lot of things like that. And then I was essentially just numbing myself to what was really going on in the back end, which was I hadn't been to church in ages. I hadn't had a conversation with my parents in ages. I was neglecting my siblings, especially my brother, who's my best friend in the whole world. He's the one person that I look towards, even though he's younger than me, he looks up to me and I look up to him, because we both, we're very close as siblings, and, we'll take on the whole world together. So, I'm very lucky to have that with him, to this day. And he'll laugh when he sees this, but
how old is he?
We're 15 months apart, so he's 15 months younger than me, just over a year. So he'll be turning 24 and I'll be turning 25 this year. So
wow. Maybe he's just covert and he's going to take you out for bashing the shit out of you.
He can try.
You know what they say? Keep your enemies closer.
He can
he's
try.
Fucking smart. I've worked him out, mate.
But now that I'm an enhanced bodybuilder, he's got no chance.
I don't know, man.
But look, going back, that period for me was, it was very dark. Like I said, I had no direction at all. And then when you involve, things like, your different stimulants from drugs and whatnot, your brain is, your brain's cooked. It doesn't know what's going on. And because I already had those behavioral issues in the background, the anger management, that just fueled violence for me, and it just amplified all the thoughts that were going on in my head at that time. So the breaking point for me, was essentially, first of all, when COVID happened, I'd got to the point where I was extremely unhealthy. 140 kilos was the heaviest.
So you sit in there with your cigarette, mate.
Yeah. And, it was...
I don't know if I saw the chair, but you're sitting on something.
It was dangerous for me, So I figured out that something had to give, whether I liked it or not. And it didn't take for me until one night when, me and all the boys were on it, and we had excessively consumed, various substances and whatnot. And I got home that night, and obviously
what did you consume?
I couldn't sleep.
Come on,
heaps of shit, coke, just weed, then uppers, downers, things to combat the coke, things to combat the M. So, you've got like your opioids, Valium, Endone, things like that, just to, calm down. And
it's a dangerous place.
It's just a cocktail of shit just to help you get out of a rut that, that you've put yourself in, and all that you're doing is digging it deeper, and you don't realize that until you get out of it. And like I said, I was in that hole for 2 years, and I'm very grateful and I'm very lucky of the support network that I have around me, which, comes first my parents and my siblings. So I actually told them what was going on. Yeah. At first I was hiding it, as you do. They didn't know where I was going. I was out all hours of the night, I didn't come home for a day at a time, 2 days at a time. And eventually they're not stupid, especially my mum, because my grandpa from mum's side, he was involved in a lot of shit too. When they came, he ended up leaving my mum and my yaya, when my mum's siblings, were born, because they're both disabled, my mum's uncles, they're both passed away now. But anyway, he ended up packing up and leaving. But the point is, my mum was street smart. So she knew exactly what was going on. She could see it in my eyes. She could see it, in my attitude. Yeah. And I ended up just breaking down in front of my parents one day, and I'm like, this has been going on. Whatever. This isn't who I am. It is what it is. I have to stop it. So you know, and it still kept going for a bit. I wasn't able to stop straight away, but it comes back to that, like I said, that one night cocktail of everything under the sun. I'm at home one night and I actually looked at the icon in my room, which I had scratched out. So when I was younger, right, I had a tantrum at home, a really bad anger management tantrum, and then I ended up grabbing a knife or something, and I scratched out the icon out of the metal, you know, that it was sitting in. It was an icon of Jesus.
Yeah.
I've still got that icon in my room, but, you know, the face is all scratched out. Like, you know, it's all, you know.
Do you have it there purposely to remember?
Yeah. I've still got that there, you know, and I haven't done anything to it. You know, it's one of a few icons that are in my room that Dad's put there, you know, since I was a kid. And I was looking at that icon one night, you know, off my head, you know, dripping bullets. You know, my heart was beating through my chest. I could hear it in my brain. And I'm looking at that icon, and I literally said, you know, like, help me.
Wow.
Like, you know, please help me. Like, I need help. You know, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's as if, and I kid you not, you know, this isn't any, you know, bullshit that you think up of. I actually felt like I heard a voice. Yes, you could say, you know, I was on so many drugs, you know, you know, the psychoactive, but I felt something speak to me and say, you know, it's all right, I've got you.
You know, a lot of people said voices. They've heard the voice.
Yeah, you know, I actually felt something, you know, say to me, you know, it's all right, I've got you. You know, I'm going to get you out of this. And then that was literally it. That was the turning point for me. I woke up the next day, you know, I sort of, you know, I told my parents, I said, look, this is it, I'm done, whatever. I threw all my paraphernalia away, everything that I had, because I was keeping stuff in the house as well, you know. And I decided that the first thing I was going to do, of all things, was lose weight. I said, that's going to be the first step. And this is right when the pandemic happened. So I made this decision as soon as we went into lockdown for the first time. And I was lucky because at that time, I had my cousin's good friend at the time. He's a music producer, and he's in the band. He had a little home gym at his house in Liverpool. It was just a little garage. He just had a couple of pieces of equipment in there, whatever. And I thought, you know what, stuff it. I said, I'm going to go in there and train. He invited us over to come and train whenever we wanted. He was very like-minded with us as well, with the whole, you know, anti-COVID bullshit and everything they put us through. You know, I'm not vaccinated. I'm proud to say it.
We're not vaccinated.
Yeah. You know,
we're clean blood.
Exactly, yeah. So, you know, we
suckers, clean blood people.
You know, so we went over to his house, and because we shared the same mindset and all that, we all got into our training again. And then I started, you know, cutting out calories. It also helped the fact that, you know, I was talking to someone at the time too. You know, I had my first official.
Sorry, no clean blood people. Just in case we don't want to lose followers. Sorry, guys. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. So it helps at that time too. I was talking to someone as well. I ended up having my heart broken, whatever, and I wasn't eating because of that. And you know, that also motivated me to lose more weight, just to become a more confident, more better version of myself. And essentially, you know, from there, the motivation just fed into the discipline, just fed into the motivation, you know, all the other way around, whichever way that goes. And then it just became habit forming for me. So I knew every day, you know, say 12 o'clock, I'm going to go to Reese's house and train. You know, I knew that. And then when the gyms opened back up temporarily before they shut again, I went straight to Anytime Fitness. I'd had a membership since 2016, whenever my parents had, you know, told me to sign up because I'd expressed that I was interested in the gym. And I essentially, you know, kept going. I made an effort to lose weight, and then I started by doing small steps. There was nothing drastic. And that's what I had to realize, coming from the complete opposite, you know, doing a full 180, saying that I'm going to look like Jay Cutler tomorrow is not going to be a realistic thing, you know. And
you did say that somewhere, but I'll get to it.
Well, the reason why I bring up Jay Cutler as well is because I've had a poster of him on my door since 2016, on my room door, that's signed by him. We went to the fitness expo with my brother back in 2016 when I was, you know, massive, you know, and 2018, sorry, when I was up 130, 140 kilos. And I was able to meet Jay Cutler, and I'd always been a fan, and this is where I can get...
What was he like in real life?
You know what? He was a gentleman, I must say.
Is he tall?
No, actually, he's about, I think I'm slightly taller than him, or he's my height. He's exactly my height.
They're all around that height. Yeah. They seem so much taller though when you see
I know. Well, on stage, I think the cameras are looking from down up, and, you know, they're all looking massive. But yeah, I think he's my height. So, he was a gentleman, absolute gentleman. You know, he had time for us. You know, he asked me what my goals were, and he knew, you know, I didn't look like anybody, but I was obese then, you know. But I told him I love lifting weights, and, you know, he gave me some words of encouragement or whatnot. And then, you know, like I said, I had that poster of him stuck up on my room door, but I always used to look at people like that, you know, Jay Cutler, Dorian Yates, Ronnie Coleman, you know, all these old school bodybuilders, and think they're freaks. That, you know, achieving anywhere near that physique, it's impossible. I thought it's just nice to look at, and that's what I thought. I said, yeah, it's nice to look at, but you know, it's just, for me, it was more of a stoic thing to have, you know, a male figure up there that's, you know, someone that you would look up to. I didn't ever think of it at that point as if I want to try and achieve anything, like that. So, that's where my sort of segue into bodybuilding started. And then when I started losing weight, when I started looking a little bit better, I've really fell in love with training again like I had in high school.
Yeah.
But now I just wanted to grow and get freaking huge. And I wanted to, sort of say F you to a lot of the people that, during that time, obviously, being COVID and whatnot, and I had the shits with the government, I had the shits with all these people on the news, and I'm just like, fuck you, I'm just going to train hard and become massive. And, that was my mindset. And it's honestly, like, I had everything against society at that point. It was, and that's not the right mindset to have either now. I look back and I gotta think, a lot of people were duped during that period. A lot of people were taken advantage of. I don't care, what view people might have on this, but, it's a very fair assessment to make that a lot of people were taken advantage of during that time, and they were forced to do things against their will, So my parents were forced to have that vaccine, otherwise they'd lose their jobs and they wouldn't be able to provide for us, and they couldn't get, any dodgy or anything like that. My dad wouldn't have it in him to do that anyway.
They're not real Greeks then.
Well,
we need to talk to them. Chris, bring Chris's message.
Hey guys, Steve here, Muscle Talks podcast. I'm super excited about the affiliation that we're doing here with Pawtion. I care so much about what I consume, let alone I care so much about my pets. I even care about my viewers, and I'm a big advocate for good food. So especially with single source natural product for dogs, I'm a big fan of, and I want you to reap the rewards and the benefits. Pawtion.com.au, go there, first order Muscle Talks 25, get 25% off. Continuing orders, Muscle Talks 10. I strongly recommend that if you're looking after yourself, you're going to want to look after your furry ones as well. Natural, single source product. Pawtion.com.au. Use Muscle Talks 25. First order, Muscle Talks 10. Second order. Go get it now.
Danny, we need to talk to these people. They forgot their roots of dodginess. They forgot the roots of dodginess. If they're watching this, just reach out to Chris. He's 5 years from Messenger. He's just come back, and he's still not telling us everything. I don't even know how we get this studio and how we get the cameras going. But the thing is, it was a crazy time.
Yeah.
No, because I remember my daughter. I said to her, "Don't get vaccinated," and unfortunately, when the other side was saying to go over my ex. I remember the day Ruby came to me. She came to my house. She was crying.
Yeah.
Crying. She goes, "Dad, I'm not going to be able to go out, be with my friends." Crying. And that's when they were doing the big fucking cattle herd at Olympic Park.
Yeah, yep.
The cattle herd at Olympic Park. They had them lined up, man.
Yeah.
In the halls. Go.
Oh, they were offering free cheeseburgers and all sorts of, like, the fact that they have to have that as an ad, like, just doesn't that question it yourself?
And our governments are just smiling away, and they're getting statues put up, and they, oh my God, how sick is it? And she was crying, and I said to her, "Rubes, you got to go and do it."
Yeah.
I said, "How can I stop you now? Look at you." I said, "But I'll pray. I'll pray for you. You'll be right." I said, "Let's just go in strong, and I'll pray for you."
And that was exactly my parents' mindset too. My dad's like, we've done our prayers, we've spoken to, our spiritual father and whatnot. Is like, we have to. If they didn't do it, I wouldn't have a roof over my head. We would have had to sell the house.
But I know. But the thing is, when it comes to the moment in life where you need to raise the shield and raise and I'm just saying the sword. Like, what about me? I said no, and there was no income. But I said, I die this way. But Benny, unfortunately, the dollar sign was sold to many. I know. Sorry if his parents are watching, and this is not. I'm not trying to say to them, but if we stood unified, we'd get past it, because they're going to have to employ us.
And that's
but
exactly
because
what I
we broke ranks. I just knew while these people went and done it, we're going to be okay. Because unfortunately, like I said to you, I mean, unfortunately, what I'm saying is, it was everyone that was employed.
Yeah, I know.
But
I know.
Like I said,
and I'm 100% with you.
But anyway,
I told my parents, don't worry, I fought my parents too.
But I get there. But everyone's disappointed at the moment. But like I said to you, but you know what? I'll say something to you, George, and Chris as well. I reckon if they do it again, they'll go do it again. Not just your parents. Everyone will go do it again. We're just not. There is no real soldiers. There's no real Spartans, Marcus Aurelius, whatever you want to call it. Anybody out there that's going to lift the sword. we're big talkers, man.
Yeah.
We're big talkers because when it comes to
battle,
battle,
I know.
There has to be a level of loss.
Yeah.
You have to know that you have to know your loss first, not your victory.
Exactly.
And the thing is, I just feel, have they learned their lessons? I don't know.
I think
not them, not your
yeah.
parents. I'm just saying, like the world itself.
I agree.
My whole family was
I
vaccinated.
agree.
My whole family, meaning my sisters, everyone got vaccinated. And the arguments and the debates.
Yeah.
I mean, my biggest debate was to people was, we're doing all this for 0.005% of, we've got 99.5321 of nothing's happening, and we're all going for this minute number.
Yeah, exactly.
I just can't. The argument was incredible. The buses, the lineups, people bringing in doctors into their factories to do the people. Like it was
all for show.
Sickening it was. How sickening it was. But let's move on to that post. All right. But anyway, it is what it is. But I see your point, and I'll be honest. I was very fortunate. You know, I showed you that photo of me at 21.
Yep.
And you know what's funny? At 21, and I haven't heard this on the podcast, obviously, you know, but I was, not only was I training, and there was bodybuilders like Terry Mitsos. I don't know if you know Terry Mitsos, but there was Terry Mitsos. There was a few others, and I used to go to them. I used to say to them, "What should I eat?" Like they never ever pushed any drugs on us.
Yeah,
I'm telling you. Even though, but they would always talk to us about food. You know, and I remember saying, I used to look at his skin, and back then, a lot of guys, like, it's funny, you guys are all shaving like crazy. Back then, we were waxing. I was waxing, and everyone was hairy.
Yeah.
Even my uncles thought I was gay.
Yeah.
Like they're going like, what's going on?
I'm very hairy naturally.
No, but I mean, I was waxing.
Yeah,
I was waxing my whole body, right?
Yeah.
I was waxing, and I have to say, if I didn't have the gym. And the gym's just allowed, like I said to you, I never had addiction to nothing, one. And two, maybe I had a few eckies here and there. I did. I mean, there was a period we would
the
have
90s, mate.
the 90s were the eckies, the white doves. Anyway, knows as white doves back then. But the eckies but the gym, though it was a small community and you had to drive an hour to it, and there were gyms like Metroflex.
Yep.
But there was nothing else. And they weren't 24 hours. They shut at 9.
Yeah.
Right? And there was an aerobics class. That was about it. But, man, that was home. That was the sanctuary. And that kept me focused on a good career. Kept me focused on going and get money.
Yep.
And still today, it's like I have to, I only know I can go get more money if I train. And I know I can go get more love if I train. And I know I can do more if I train.
Yep.
And if I don't train, I'm not doubling down.
100%.
And that's how I find training. Training is just, it's just a foundation I build on to go to the next level.
Yep.
And if I take that foundation away, I don't care how much money I've got. I don't look good for it.
Start crumpling down
If I want to find love, I don't look good for that. Like meaning I don't look solid. I don't look strong. And I think that's the one thing, because you're still young, and God, you guys talk like you're so mature, but there's so much more to come for you guys, and to have that discipline you have right now. But the one thing I'll have to say, and I don't know, like I said to you, I know everyone talks about, like, don't look at comps. Hear me out first. Don't look at comps. Don't look at steroids. Don't look at anything as a journey. They are a destination. The journey is bodybuilding. And that's what you don't give up on.
Yep.
So you don't need all that stuff if you stick to bodybuilding. Because all that other stuff, when you make that important, you're going to lose sight of bodybuilding.
Yep.
Bodybuilding is for you to go get a good job, for you to be successful in your bodybuilding business now, for you to go buy a home, for you to go have children. That's bodybuilding, not the comps. If you're banking on the comps, you're going to lose sight on bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is just like shower, brushing teeth, doing stuff. So don't give up on bodybuilding. And if you're not pedal to the metal on bodybuilding, don't worry about that. If you need to coast. But don't think, because it's not that. And majority of sure, you might see people holding sponsors and this and that.
Yeah, yeah.
Mate, no one's making money on that. It's all affiliates, and they're getting it for free. Half of them are scabs. Most importantly, use bodybuilding, which I have, to be a better lover.
Yeah.
Bodybuilding to be a better businessman. Bodybuilding to be a better dad. Bodybuilding to be very masculine and fuck everything and push everything over and turn up my best for everything. Bodybuilding, not the comps, not the this, not the that, not the nothing. I just like bodybuilding. I like eating well. I like coming in strong, and I feel better when I ride my Harley. I feel better when I drive my cars. I feel better when I put on skinny jeans. I feel better when I get the right t-shirt. I look good when I see the teardrops in the shorts. What I'm saying is, how many times are you going to see the stage?
Yeah,
So
right.
just know, bodybuilding is the journey. Everything else is a destination. So make sure that journey of success has bodybuilding in it, and never forget it.
Yeah.
Because once there's no crowds, it's just you. And that's what I'm just telling you. It doesn't bother me. I mean, many people forget that, but it's not. It's just that.
I actually 100% agree with you, because I need to remember, why I started bodybuilding in the first place.
That's right.
It wasn't because I wanted to get up on stage and,
That's right.
show everyone, oh, look at me.
Yeah.
It's, I've decided to commit to a certain lifestyle
It's
that
the
I know
lifestyle.
gives me something out of it. And from that, like I said, I left a well-paying government job, to go and manage a supplement shop, because
good.
I'm thinking, okay, how many more people can I talk to, and help me business-wise? How many people can I educate on supplements or training or, education and whatnot? And I wouldn't have had the discipline to do that, or the courage to do that, if bodybuilding hadn't given me that. So that's what I look at, with almost every decision that I make in life. Even us sitting here today, bodybuilding has given us
bodybuilding brought
this,
you.
this opportunity.
Well,
to
it
do
bring me a podcast.
Exactly. 100%,
I little did I know.
Yeah.
It bring Chris, but I mean,
But yeah, bodybuilding, gave us, meeting at Metroflex Gym and whatnot, over a common interest, seeing one of the
100%.
great sleep priests,
oh, I thought you were talking about me.
No, you too, I'm saying us meeting.
No, of course.
But, it creates a unified community that like-minded people can congregate to, and speak about things that we all have in common. That's what I love about bodybuilding so much. And that's aside from the competition.
And also the other thing is, and don't let bodybuilding, because, I mean, the funny thing is, I think I'm the same person you meet in the gym that you're finding out here in the podcast. I don't think I changed too much, right?
Yeah.
Don't let bodybuilding build an ego, but let bodybuilding build vanity, build spunk, allow to love yourself, be into yourself. I'm into myself, but I got no ego, because I don't worry about what anyone else thinks, because bodybuilding's given me something that, if I look at it, is the 5%ers. I look around, I see people, man, sad world, man, especially, but to do longevity, decade after decade, to be in the gym and to lift. Like, well, I'm going to be training later. I don't know. You're probably going to be training later if you have not already trained. What I'm saying to you is, we've got to do it. But like I said to you, the bodybuilding is like, people retire from playing. Well, no, some people play tennis, but what I'm trying to say is, not every kid's playing soccer anymore. Not playing rugby league anymore. Not playing cricket anymore. They're not skateboarding anymore. They're not raising a tennis racket anymore. And whatever, playing golf, but bodybuilding.
Weights is something you keep for life.
I love
until you
bodybuilding.
can't do it anymore.
I love it. And I love it. That's what I'm saying is, bodybuilding is, and it can introduce anyone at any time.
That's right.
And you can have 2 years away from it. Welcome back, bro.
Yeah.
5 years, welcome back. Oh, you've just started. But Rome wasn't built in a day. And like you say, all right, we'll see if you last. But that's the wonderful thing about bodybuilding is, you can just keep turning up to it. Like I said, I love the sport. And I think, like I said to you, I think it's the fountain of youth. I do believe it. And I think it forces you to eat well. I think it forces you to have good patterns. And I think it forces you to focus on oneself. And I think that only can help with people around you. And I don't know about you, I'll put money down, even if you don't speak bodybuilding. I bet you when you sit down with friends, the first thing everyone starts talking about is maybe they should start eating healthy and giving up cigarettes. And you go, what? I didn't bring up anything. The first thing they say is, I might start going to the gym, man. Or I should start eating healthy. You know what? I'm going to stop smoking.
How many calories do you think is in this joint? It's like,
Exactly, because you are the pinnacle of people looking at saying, and that's what you reflect. So actually, you're a good asset to everybody, and we've got to keep doing that. And that's what I'm saying. I sit there, mate, with strangers. I go and sit down, and they go to me, yeah, I might, you know what, I might start eating healthy. And I turn to the person next to me from there, and I go, I know why they're talking about it. Not that I'm the most biggest guy in the room, but you know, like I said to you, there's an aura you put out there. And I think, like I said, bodybuilding does an amazing thing. 6 days ago, you posted something. You said, this is why your legs won't grow. Leg session can be painful, can be daunting. Legs need to be trained hard, full stop. So tell us a bit more about leg training, mate.
So, leg training. I've actually recently, over the last year or two, have fallen in love with training my legs fucking hard to the point where, like, I'm ready to pass out.
There's nothing better.
And I've seen them respond, amazingly as well. So I used to have really small legs,
and they'll keep going.
And now that I've sort of switched up and plus the new coach that I've been working with since I competed last year as well, has helped as well with my programming and whatnot.
Who's your coach?
Flex coach George Wilson from Flex Success. So,
nice.
Yeah, if you know Dean McKillop and
I know Dean
you
McKillop,
did a podcast.
I did a podcast.
Yeah, so
they are pretty
business
good.
Partner and coach George, he's my coach. So
nice.
Amazing coach, by the way. So shout out to the team at Flex Success and to George and Dean.
Nice, yes.
But yeah, very good coach.
Make sure we tag him in, Chris.
Very good coach. Very well versed in bodybuilding. He's a nerd when it comes to the education stuff. So, and I've taken a lot from him as well. And applied it to my own coaching practice. When it comes to especially the psychology and the empathy of talking, with athletes, and being able to understand them and being empathetic. That's something that him as a very good coach he shares. But anyway, we're backtrack to the leg thing. One thing that I notice, among young men and among a lot of people that get into the gym, they skip their fucking legs. A lot of young men don't train their legs. They don't think that it's necessary. They don't want to.
Still?
Yeah, still.
It's gone for generations.
I don't know whether they're afraid of, the lactic acid buildup or it's too painful or, whatever it is.
Just doesn't look good in a bond stop.
It's not just that. The thing is...
When you go out, the girls only see the big arms.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but as soon as the pants come off, I'll laugh at you.
Oh, we won't talk about what ethnicity that is, but there you go.
But so for me, trying to put out the right information, when it comes to overall development, physique development, you need to be training your legs. You need to be training them hard, and they do require more of a stimulus than your other muscle groups do because they are the largest muscle group in the body. They already take enough brunt force, when we're walking or running on them, every single day. So what makes you think that, doing, a very light set of leg press, 3 sets of 10, when you're not going to failure on any of those sets, why would that stimulate growth? Why would they want to create an adaptation to that? So, when it comes to training legs, firstly, they support the mass of the upper body, which is essential. They support your hips, your lower back, your whole posterior chain, which stems from, from your back, your glutes, your hamstrings, things like that. It's a very important part that needs to be developed, especially for people that are looking to get big. The people that are running gear or not, if you're going to be carrying a certain amount of mass, a lot of it needs to be in your lower body. So yeah, for me, it's just more about educating, as to what exercises work for different people. And, you need to find what fits, for you. That's why I said in the video, that you can't, if you see someone doing a squat like Tom Platz, he had a beautiful squat pattern, and he had amazing form, but he had a very low center of gravity and he was able to get full range of motion when executing a squat. Not everyone's legs and femurs are made up like that. Some people can't do that. Taller people won't be able to do that. So you need to find what works for you and you need to be able to hone in on that and then keep the same exercises in your program for an extended period of time to actually see the results and to see the strength benefit and the overall the hypertrophy gain through progressive overload. So yes, in a sense, leg training is the same as every other muscle group in the sense that the way that progressive overload works. But when we talk about taking sets to failure, RIR, things like that, legs is something that I'll definitely have, a little bit higher volume, a little bit more sets taken to failure just because your legs will benefit, from it a lot more. But, in turn, that means that your legs, you can't train them as often as you would your other body parts. So for me personally, I only train my legs once a week or I have one quad focus day with 2 hamstring exercises, and then I've got 1 hamstring exercise in my pull day. But a full leg day, I only have one of those a week because I train them so hard to the point where they need a full week to recover before I can train them again. So
that's interesting. That's interesting. I think, well, firstly, and I think I heard this, I think it was from Arnold, but anyway, I've heard that to boost one's testosterone is to hit legs hard.
yeah,
Hitting legs hard helps boost testosterone. Now, I haven't done studies on it, but
Yeah.
anyone can go research it and send me letters. But the thing is, I've heard training legs helps increase testosterone, and it also helps increase upper body strength, right? To be able to just develop, right?
yeah.
But
Well, so the compound movements like the squat, right? If you think about the way that the squat pattern works, you're supporting the bar on your back, so you're engaging your upper back muscles.
what I mean.
When you're bracing, you're engaging your erectors. It's a full, even though you are targeting your quads and your glutes, it is a full body
That's what I
involved
mean.
movement.
That's what
So
I'm saying.
things like deadlifts as well. You're pulling from the ground up. So yes, you can argue that it's a hamstring or a glute dominated movement depending on which variation you do, whether it's an RDL or a conventional deadlift. You are still utilizing your lower back muscles, your erectors, your things like that to actually pull
Got
into
arms involved. everything.
exactly. So the benefits of leg training, are insane, when you have them in the right place. And like you said, with the testosterone thing as well, I think, and don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that I've also heard that it boosts, IGF-1 and growth hormone within your body.
That's right. That's what
when you
it
have
is.
a heavy leg session, which in turn will also, convert into more free testosterone around the body because there's more growth hormone to utilize. So that's that's the other added benefit of that as well. So you're doing a massive benefit by training your legs and by training them hard, and I think that's what makes the difference between your average gym enthusiast who just goes in there, does biceps and chest, and then someone who's actually going in there to to create stimulus and to break down muscle tissue to then cause an adaptation. You can really see a difference there.
I think as well, like it's funny because when you have, I don't know about you, but they say when you've taken time off, people usually come back to the gym and the first thing they train is like chest or something.
Of course.
But not me. If I have 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off, and
Yeah.
we're not back in, we don't have the what did I finish with? It didn't matter. 3 weeks ago, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It's always I always come in. I start with legs.
Yeah.
The reason I start with legs is one, it makes me take it seriously. It tells me not to take time away, or else you're always going to start with legs.
Yeah.
So turn up, because if you don't turn up, you're starting with legs.
Yeah.
And I feel, well, that's, and also, the adaptation and testosterone, whatever you were calling it, to go throughout my body. So legs are very important. Back in the day, it wasn't really trained a lot, but I trained it, and I think I've got good symmetrical type quads for myself, for my height and weight. But I put it down to, range of movements. Really, I mean, I don't think I could ever repeat the range of movements I used to do because we were naive and just dumb.
Yeah.
Because we used to go so low with heavy weight, but we also banked on each other spotting. Now I see guys at the gym and like his mates can't fucking get the lift up and he's on his phone. And I look and go, fuck, the guy's dying over here, man. Yeah. And he can probably get one more or two more out of it with a bit of a spot.
Yeah.
But his mate's too busy checking the phone, and it's just no one's working. Actually, no one's utilizing spotting.
Well, that's the other
Spotting
thing.
Spotting is one of the big. We used to spot strangers.
Yeah.
The gym, you'd go and a guy would go to me, "Excuse me, mate." I go, "Yep." He goes, "Can you spot me?" And I go, "Yep." Yeah. And it was like when you finished, he'd go, "Mate, you need me. I'm going to spot you." And you would. You go, "Hey, buddy." And it's not that you went, "Hey, buddy, remember me spotting you the few days?" You go, "Hey," but everybody, mate. That's why the gym was like 2 hours. It wasn't 2 hours of training. It was 2 hours of spotting.
Yeah.
So spotting, I don't know why, but spotting was a big play back in the 80s and especially the 90s. 80s and 90s, there was so much spot. Like no one was alone. Even when you trained alone, you pushed. You go. Yeah. It was all about PBs. Like I mean, I don't know if it's all changed now and it's all gone science and mathematical. But it was always PBs.
Yeah. Look, with the whole science thing, I think. You got to take the good with the bad, and everything. There's a new study that comes out every single day, and you have to learn to take everything with a grain of salt. And that's what I've learned, as a coach and as someone who likes to be educated in the various disciplines of hypertrophy and what's optimal and what's not quote unquote optimal. And I'll say quote unquote because what might be optimal for you is not optimal for me. At the end of the day, our bodies are different, right?
Yeah.
And I think that people have tried to overcomplicate something that is actually quite simple. Now, when you get into the niche of things, right, when you say, okay, I want to develop a certain part of the body because of the feedback that I got from a judge for the stage, that's a different story. That's when you can, turn to sort of intensive, intricate programming where we can say, okay, I need to allocate the right amount of recovery around this body part. So, that's when you talk about, fatigue manipulation and, taking away reps from certain sets and allocating different volume here. So you can take into account for the fatigue. That's what we do when it comes to programming. It's all about minimizing fatigue, maximizing hypertrophy and recovery. But I still stand back to, and Dorian Yates had it right from the freaking get-go. I always stand back to his style, He only used to train 4 days a week, no more than 45 minutes. Every single working set that he would do, he'd be pushing to the point of, no return.
Yeah.
And that's what people seem to forget. You can do all the tricky programming you want. You can say, I want to do this behind the head, this and this weird variation of a curl, that. And if you're sitting there focusing so much on your tempo, right, or making sure that you leave between 1 and 3 reps in reserve because that that's the optimal, thing for hypertrophy, and I'll get into that in a second because I made a post about it. You're forgetting the whole reason why you're there, and then your brain, instead of focusing on being in the muscle, it's focusing on all this information, all this science about, what sort of form you have to do or what tempo you have to keep. And it actually takes away, right, and studies have shown this too, it actually takes away from the efficacy of the set being performed because your brain is all over the shop. There's too many things that you're trying to break down about what's supposed to be happening during that set, as opposed to you just training the fucking muscle,
And also, and you, like I said, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'll give you an example. So many variations, so many styles. But back in the day, and even now when I train, so for me at the moment, my split, I thought I'd change it. I always try different splits.
Yeah.
But you got to do the split for amount of time.
Right.
Everything's 12 weeks. Everything is 12 weeks. So my split at the moment is 2 days on, 1 day off.
Yep, that's what I'm doing the same thing.
Fuck, awesome. It's good.
Yeah.
It's the best one I've picked out of all my life, the 2 days on, 1 day off.
It's awesome.
It is awesome. But also what I found was what I went back to is I used to rock up and go, oh, you know what, I'll do preacher curl. We'll talk about biceps. I'll do preacher curl and straight arm standing curls, whatever. And then when I come back to it again, I go, oh, I'll do cable flies and I'll do whatever.
Yeah.
But then I realized, no, let's stick with preacher curls and barbell standing curls for fucking 12 weeks and push the motherfucker hard and break records each time.
Exactly.
And that's how it was before. We knew what we're doing for 12 weeks. And not that we were writing it down, we just knew it's squats, leg press, and seated leg raises. That's just those 3 things. And that was it for 12 weeks. It wasn't, all right, we'll do lunges and then we'll do it was just, man, this is the one that's going to win. This is the one, like it was. And then we knew our body was getting too comfortable. So then we'd go, let's keep arm curls still in. Let's implement something new. And then let's take arm curls out and let's implement this in. And we just went for 12 weeks, 12 weeks. 12
so that's
weeks,
where the modern research.
And it was so easy. No, the other was we didn't go in confused. There was no like, what are we doing today? We just we had time to talk to each other, but we just did the workout. We weren't like fucking studying and people changing our minds. Like everybody's changing our minds.
And so that's where I guess the modern research can come into it, to the advantage where, when you spoke about saying, shocking the body or the body gets too comfortable, right? Arnold used to always say, shock the muscle. So when we talk about that, that's where the sort of modern intensifiers have come in place. So when you are running those extensive programs and you might think that the body's getting used to it, or it's getting used to that, same amount of stimulus and you need to change it up, or you might need to be more aggressive with a certain body part because it's not catching up as quick as the others. That's where you can implement things like, your drop sets, your rest pauses, where you can get more out of a single set, right, as opposed to adding a whole nother set. So you get, you get more volume and more intensity out of that single set by utilizing like a rest pause. And then you go again until failure, within that same set. So that's where I guess modern research works to its advantage because you're able to put the muscle under, more significant stress, and allow it for, to create that adaptation again. So that's where, like I said, I think it's a catch-22, when it comes to all the, modern science-based stuff where, yes, a lot of it does have its application. But on the other hand, if you are someone that's a newer lifter, who hasn't got much experience in the gym, don't get caught up in all the science bullshit, because don't forget, most of these people as well are trying to sell their own programs. They're trying to run their own businesses. They're trying to get their own clients. And it's a massive sales game. So do your own research, learn how to think for yourself, figure out what works for your body. That's the most important thing. And that's what I try and, give to my clients. I'm not going to give them, a squat or a hack squat just because I know a hack squat works for me. I'll tell them, I say, look, let's try out these exercises. I want your feedback in a week's time. Tell me, are you feeling the hack squat in your quads, or are you getting lower back pain, or you're not feeling it in your quads at all? If you are feeling it in your quads, great. Are you able to progress it? Let's see if we can go 2.5 kilos heavy next week, or let's try and get an extra rep. Because progressive overload isn't just adding more weight, it's also adding more volume, adding an extra rep. This week I got 10 reps instead of 9 that I got last week. Next week I'll get 11, and so on.
No, there is, like I said, but yeah, like you said, there's in the internet's hilarious. But let's go back here. Let's have a look. What do you got here? The darkest period of your life when you hit rock bottom, man. After giving up construction, which wasn't for you. This is where you put on 140 kilos.
That's right.
In 2020, you were at 140 kilos, not put on. You were at 140 kilos. You had been working as a baggage handler, you said, spending all your money, which you also had a car loan, you said. And working at Qantas, so it does the next 3 years. You fell into depression. You had the fuck it mentality. And you're kind of waiting for something to fall into your lap. And around the same time, you started hanging back crowd, you said. And the period of time is where your parents were worried about you. You weren't returning home. And you came to the realization at 21, no money, no future, seriously overweight, and basically alcohol. So you kind of covered that. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
Not really. I guess, I think actually, now that I think about it, even though it's not an experience that I'd relive, or, I can definitely say I regret a lot of things that I did during that time. But in a weird way, I'm glad that I went through it, because a lot of times, and you'll hear this from a lot of people that say, you don't realize it unless you go through it yourself. It's the lessons that you learn from these things. And I take everything as a lesson now. There's actually an Australian influencer. His name is Jeffrey Morgan. I'm not sure if you've heard of him before.
No.
He's quite popular. Anyway, he's a life coach sort of thing. I was at the business seminar with him, a couple of weeks ago, and the one thing that he says is every lesson is a blessing. So, and that's something that I'm sort of starting to understand now. When it comes to things like that, going through those periods, whatever they are, when you come out of them the other side, you realize, okay, I've actually learnt heaps here. I've learnt now, I've had to, unfortunately for me, I had to do it the hard way, which is something that I've done my whole life. I couldn't just say no. If someone tells me don't press that red button, something bad's going to happen, I'll press it to find out what's going to happen.
Probably going to go on forever, mate. The hard way.
I'm just that type of person. But like I said, from that, I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about what I need to do to become the man that I need to become. The type of man that I should be, the man that my father raised me to be. And I guess that whole experience has given me, the foundation to sort of start again. And then from there transitioning into, and the big reason why I started bodybuilding was because of that period that I went through. It's as if I was punishing myself for a period of time for being that type of person. And then, I started initially for the wrong reasons. It was because I wanted to punish myself. It's like, okay, look what you've done. You have to punish yourself now by doing this, kill yourself in the gym, starve yourself, whatever. And then I figured out that was also the wrong way to be thinking about it, because that's not a long-term approach. And as you said, in this game, we have to think long-term. We have to think, how can I keep this lifestyle sustainable forever? Competition or not, this is who I am now. This is my lifestyle. I want to embody that, for a very long time to come.
It's your lifestyle.
Exactly. So that's when I started to switch my mindset around that again as well. And that was, before I decided to compete. And then, it came a point where, I jumped on my first cycle, as you do. I was, 22, somewhere there. Anyway, and just your usual, just off the boys in the gym, whoever on you had. I had no idea about, proper cycle protocols. I hadn't studied any of it like I have now. So I was just running, your basic, your compounds, your test, DECA, the old school stack, finish off with, with Winstrol and, to get yourself cut. Because I'm sitting here thinking that in the space of, of 12 weeks, I'm going to go from bulking to shredded because of the compounds, and the compounds are going to do that for me. Little did I know, yes, I saw results. I got, got a lot stronger, a lot fuller, I had more definition, more lines, but it was nowhere near the effect that I thought it was going to have,
Still very premature.
Yeah, 100%. And
you need to build muscle belly. You need to grow.
That's right. That's right.
You need to, it takes years years for you to put on 5 kilos of
100%,
muscle.
100%. And that's what I try and tell people now that ask me for advice. It's like, oh, if I take this, am I going to get this? And it's like, no, man, you're not. Like, trust me, I've been doing this now, for bodybuilding properly, for the last 3 years. And that's just been 365 days a week, a year, every single day, on point with training, with nutrition, whatever, right? And I'm still not a freak factor, So if I've been doing it for 3 years and I'm still nowhere near, like, your Mike Halusi, who's probably, Australia, one of Australia's biggest, or Sam Pearce or any of them, they've been living that lifestyle for 20 years.
100%, man.
And the fact that, people think I can just do one cycle or whatever and look like them, it's like, bro, you're kidding yourself. Like,
no. You can't look like them at all. And like I said, it is, they've done the work and then they've just piggybacked on the back of that.
Yeah.
I even saw that the only thing steroids did in that short time that I took it was, one, it made me stronger.
Yeah.
But that strength made me break down muscle better.
Yeah.
To recover muscle, to build muscle. But I still had to go to the gym. I still had to eat well. I still had to rest.
It's the icing on the cake.
Yeah, and and it just gave me a little bit of the eye of the tiger. But I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question. Maybe, Chris, you can listen to this one too. But people talk to me about, bodybuilding. And many talk to me, like yourself, about faith. Well, how do you think God feels about us taking steroids? The reason I say that is, I'm not saying God disapproves of anything, but what I'm getting at is, like, aren't we cheating? In a way, aren't we cheating? Like, what I'm getting at is, which sport says, and George is coming out and currently is on DECA and Steve's coming on. He's on Trimble and Steve, and well done, Stephen. And wow, look at that guy, Chris over there. He's come out with Tren. Really good training. Instead, it's all like hush, hush. Let's not say anything. And now we're normalizing it. Now we're normalizing it. But and then we talk about God. And we don't, like we just want to please him and make him happy. I don't know. Like, what does he think about cycles?
Yeah, look, I mean, this is my understanding from, what I've learned about myself. And this is a question that I've asked myself. And my parents asked me the same question too.
I'm sure it's a good question for your parents because 100%. They've never taken a cycle yet.
No, of course not. But, I kind of look towards people like Derek Lunsford and how he views it, right? So,
how does he view it?
So Derek Lunsford, he preaches a lot in his YouTube videos.
I know, I've noticed that,
He's a devout Christian, he loves it. And look, the way that I can understand it is, I want
to understand it because I don't understand it.
I know for a fact that I'm a better person than I used to be.
That's one.
Okay, I'm dedicating more time to try and become a better man, to try and help other people, through business.
Yep.
To try and be better to my parents, to try and be, the man that God wants me to be.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes
to... Well, you think we'd be better with steroids? So
well,
God makes us a better person with a cycle?
Well, look, I think God gives us the mind to be able to make decisions that are either going to benefit us or, or be to our detriment, right?
Okay, go ahead.
Now, when we talk about, will he approve of me drinking this, or will he approve of me drinking this, all these things he's made available for us to use at our own disposal.
Right.
Right? Whether one is better than the other, I personally don't think is what we're going to be judged on at the end of the day. I don't think God is judging me, right, whether I took a TRT dose to help replace my testosterone levels or whether I'm taking a full blast, whether that's going to affect my position in heaven or, whether it's made me a worse person than the person next to me.
Find out. Maybe he's got the steroid guys on the side here, yeah? Just take a seat over here with...
Yeah, piss in a cup for me.
Go over here with Dorian and the rest.
But, I think it's more the bigger picture.
Piss in a cup.
I think it's more the bigger picture. You know, what have you done?
Can I please have enhanced people over here
That's right.
at the gates? And can I have those that have taken a cycle over here, please?
Yeah.
We need to test you.
Yeah.
We need to know before we put you in
Lie
position.
detector test and so, yeah.
Go on.
Yeah. I think for me, it's about the important, you know, what have you done to contribute to society? What have you done to help mankind? Have you given to the poor? You know, all those things to me, I think hold greater significance in his eyes, because that's the lesson that he teaches us in the scripture. That's the lesson that, you know, all the disciples, you know, teach us in the scripture. Be good to one another, you know, love one another like yourself, you know, all that kind of stuff. I think as long as we embody those qualities and that we try and be the best people we can be, and that's just not Christians. I feel the same thing, you know, for Muslims, you know, for Hindus, whatever, right? Believe in whatever God you want to believe in. If you're genuinely a good person and you help other people and you try and you become the best version of yourself, I don't see a reason why you should be persecuted for that, or why God would, you know, show, you know, sort of distaste towards that, right? Regardless of what you choose to take. Now, things like narcotics.
Maybe we should ask God what meals can we take.
Yeah, that's how many milligrams do you approve of before it's
Before you abuse it.
not worth it. Yeah,
Before you become abusive and egotistical.
yeah, that's it.
You know, how many meals are we allowed?
Yeah, that's it.
Before I abuse it
100%.
and become ego.
Yeah.
You go ahead, narcotics.
But yeah, you know, when it comes to things like narcotics, right, where you are purposely taking something to make you numb or to, you know, to take away a feeling, that's a different thing, you know, because then you are willingly taking something that you know is, first of all, harmful to your body, and it's, you know, and it's forbidden, like it's illegal. And yes, steroids are illegal too. Well, I know
that just sounds funny now.
I know, it sounds
no,
cool.
because you know what's going to happen after this podcast?
Yeah.
Everyone's going to stop taking steroids. We've ruined it, Chris.
We've ruined it.
We've ruined for everyone. Everyone's going
Boys, keep testosterone and take the steroids and other.
They're going to stop taking steroids because they're going to say, God, we need to know what the meals are.
Yeah.
So we've ruined it for everyone because
We're right, the scripture.
we've got to go through the Bible and find out where steroids fits into the Bible, because
James
hang
chapter
on,
13 verse 6.
stop. Cocaine is illegal, not steroids.
Yeah.
Snorting cocaine but injecting extra mils is not.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. No, you know, I've been thinking about it because I have people like you talking to me, and I see people online go, and with God and Jesus, and I think, and I'm looking at them like their fucking traps are off underneath their ears.
Yeah.
Like,
Look, that's one reason why I don't preach. You know, I'm in no position to do it anyway. I'm not. You know, I'm no one. I need to work on myself.
Look,
you know?
I think at the end of the day, I don't think. Because we've stopped everyone taking steroids now. I just think, you know, we've ceased steroids because it's done. It's all we've cleansed everybody. But I think everything we do, I think there is a hard, long conversation with ourselves. Doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
Because I think we're normalizing a lot of things at the moment, and I don't think we should normalize anything.
Yeah.
What I'm saying to you is, I think, like everything, just talk to God about it, and you know, because I can tell you now, like I said, I think you'd be surprised what you can. Like I said, you'd be surprised. Just know this, George. Don't listen to the world of cycles, because I can tell you most of these guys have withered away. And they're withered away, and most won't tell you they're hopeless in bed. They can't get an erection.
Yeah.
No one tells you that. No one tells you the stories. They just tell you how big their arms are.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is just play around with it, have fun with it, but find home base. Everyone out there, find home base.
Yeah.
My first cycle was at 49. I've not touched it since. Will I touch it again? Maybe I want to have a play.
Yeah.
But mate, I just want to. I just not only want my sex drive, my testosterone levels to be high, and I've checked. What I'm getting is, and I want to be pleasing to the average, which we're talking about my partner, my kids, and keep up. And I want to feel strong. I don't want to hide. I don't want to be a closet guy that has lost his fucking balls. So what I'm saying is just be cautious as you're going forward. Play around with get in, get out. Get in, get out.
I think
because I think the guys that have stayed in too long. No, honestly, the guys that have stayed in too long, I don't think they're ever going to tell you. I don't think they're going to tell you what they've lost. And many won't. I'll tell you, maybe they haven't. And the other thing I'm going to say, and I know, because I haven't said this on a podcast, this TRT thing, it's to replace the abuse of steroids. I know, and the abuse of shit diets, and the abuse of pesticides, and the abuse of our government, and the abuse of ruining you, ruining you guys with testosterone. And stop washing your hair every day. It's chemicals. Stop brushing your teeth every fucking 5 minutes. It's chemicals. Stop everything. Get back into fucking chicken and rice, steak. Go chase a fucking cow, break it up, eat it. I don't give a fuck. Go and train at the gym hard. They're the basic stuff, mate. But all this TRT and when someone tells you your testosterone is low, the first thing,
diet.
Fucking go to your diet and give yourself 12 weeks. Mate, my doctor said to me once, "Oh, your cholesterol's high." And I said, "You know what I did?" I said, he goes, we'll reassess it in 12 weeks. Oh, yeah. I go, yeah, right. I went home and I thought, what am I having that's cholesterol high? So I just looked at my diet a little bit back then. Whatever I did, was I eating too much avocado? Was I having fucking too much egg with yolk? I don't know what I was doing. But I went and did my bloods in my 50s recently. Yeah. Mate, everything's beautiful. Where's my cholesterol? So what I'm getting at is, if your testosterone's low for some reason, go home, pray to God, reassess, and get back into the diet and look at what I'm not having and double down on the good shit. Start eating good, good steaks. Go get organic grass-fed. Maybe that's what you need to do. Not meat, grass-fed. Yeah, you're spending a little bit more money, but get this. I don't know. People can argue all they want. I don't give a fuck. But when I hear this TRT, and as soon as you start injecting TRT, your brain goes, oh, you're getting it from somewhere else. I won't give it to you. Yeah, mate, firstly, get your body to give it to you before you start taking TRT. I'm telling you, mate, they're making it so easy for you guys to take TRT. Be careful of that. That's probably one of the worst things I'm seeing out there at the moment. I know they're going to start arguing about this stuff, but no one goes to diet. Yeah. Diet, mate, just have a steak for breakfast, have a steak for lunch, have a steak, and you know what? Grass-fed, organic, get in your car, drive out to the countryside where someone's got a fucking own abattoir killing their own shit. And
we're actually ordering our food from the butcher crowd now, from organic grass-fed meat, because I don't trust supermarket food anymore. But going back to what you said with the
one more thing I'm going to say to you. Sorry, one more thing. I want you to go look at all the packaging at the shop, and this is what you're going to see: seed oils. Yeah. Now I'm telling you, all your sun-dried tomatoes, olives in oil. Go look at your chips. You probably saw a post. I had a chip, pack it up, had 3 ingredients. Yeah. Potato, olive oil, and sea salt. Yeah. That was it, the chips. Yeah. They're from Spain, but I thought they were Greek. Yeah. But chips, go look at all your chips in the aisle. Wait a minute. Go look at all your spices. Yeah. You'll see seed oils.
I know.
Fucking everything's seed oil, man.
Or canola oil. Yeah, I know.
So the best food is when you go to fruit and veg section and you see avocado, tomatoes, cucumbers. I know they're special, but what I'm saying is very simple, guys. Just start looking at your packaging and you're going to see that everything is sucked up with seed oil. Get tuna in brine. Get things in brine. Don't, like I said, seed oil is fucking everywhere. And the funniest thing is, I was seeing Chris, because we've got a dog food company, by the way. Yeah. Not me, I own it. Go look at dog food. Go look at dog food. Yeah. And when it says chicken, turn it around. And then go grab beef, turn around, same ingredients. Yep. They just tell you they write chicken because there's chicken in it and beef. The other one says it's got chicken and beef, but they want to call it beef. There you go. Mate, they only tell you, like, you just got to look at things. Like even rice bubbles is clean. Yeah. Go look at rice bubbles ingredients. You'll laugh. You'll laugh at rice bubbles ingredients is cleaner than a lot of other shit. Yeah. And like I said, everything you gotta like I said, food is just not food today. Where food was food in the past.
You're right. And I think that's a major thing that's been the detriment of male testosterone levels as well. It's all the spraying that they do of, all the plants that we eat, all the fruits. And the biggest thing, the biggest excuse that people use, is, my testosterone levels are low and it's a quick fix. I want to get on TRT. It's an excuse. Like with everything, like with Ozempic, which I spoke against when it first came out, but now we found links to Ozempic to cancer. Yeah. You're slowing down your digestive tract. You're not digesting food properly in order to shrink to get rid of your appetite, but you're not absorbing nutrients. Yeah. Anyway. It's all big pharma. It
But
doesn't-
even Alzheimer's. My dad was smart till he stopped growing his veggie patch.
Yeah.
And started eating Special K for dinner
yeah,
when he was on his own. And I go there and he's got his big, even yogurt.
yeah,
Go look at yogurt ingredients, mate. I look at yogurt ingredients. I don't look at calories. Mate, once you see fucking numbers under numbers under numbers, just because it's 90 calories and you got 10,000 numbers, mate, do you know what? I'll tell you what's even better. You know what? Go and get fresh cream. You'll see 2 ingredients, milk and thickened, and go blend it and go eat it like you want to enjoy it because it's 100% fucking milk.
Exactly.
So what I mean is it's just crazy the way they made this world. And then how crazy is it that it's machines versus free weights? Your post. I want to know. I want to segue in. Huh? Machines versus free weights for chest. Want to maximize your chest growth? Let's talk machines versus free weights. Machines give you more stability, control, safely positioned, controlled contraction, less injury prone. I was reading porn there for a second, but less injury prone. But don't sleep on free weights. Engaging stabilizer muscles, core, helping overall strength. Apply both is the secret.
that's right.
You wrote it.
Yeah, so
You posted it.
I like using a mixture of both personally.
so do I,
I like to program a mixture of both. As I said, the advantage with machines is that it eliminates the need for a spotter.
Yeah, it does.
So you can push to failure pretty safely, knowing that as soon as you get to that failure, you can drop the weight. So there's an argument there to say, okay, they can be potentially more stimulating than some free weight movements because you are able to overload on them to the point where you're under the maximum mechanical tension in the muscle, which will cause, the most amount of stimulus and stress to that, that given muscle. So there's an argument for that. Now with free weights, there are some free weights that can't be replaced by machines, right? So you've got, like I said, your barbell squats, which is an overall strength development movement, right? And it's not, although you can use it as an isolation movement, it's not really an isolation movement like a machine would be. You've got your deadlifts as well. You can't really replicate, a conventional deadlift, with a machine. Things like that build overall strength. So free weights give you that strength, that good raw strength. Machines let you refine and target certain muscles, really effectively and properly. So when we're talking about, isolating the upper part of the chest, is where you jump on an incline isolateral press machine. You can really focus on that squeeze, and really go to failure and then hold yourself when you reach failure in that stretched position. Before you let go of the weight, you're creating an extra stimulus right there at the bottom end of that rep. Whereas with dumbbells, if you're doing incline dumbbells, you'll know as soon as you can't get them up, your form breaks, you have to drop them, right? If you try and push past failure, you'll get injured. So using machines...
Slamming onto your shoulder.
Yeah, well, yeah. Especially when you're lifting heavy weights too. So that's why I think a lot of bigger bodybuilders that are really strong, we're talking about your open pros here, they prefer using machines as opposed to free weights because it allows them to, completely overload without having a spotter there, because not everyone has the advantage of, the opportunity to have a training partner. So they can completely overload, a certain muscle and then just be able to let go as opposed to doing it on a free weight with a much heavier load, less control. So,
I find with free weights, it's good when you strap up.
Yeah.
Strapping up. I think strapping up to me, it just mentally stabilizes.
Well, I
you.
strap up for machines too. So when I'm doing a row, I'll strap around the handle of the row, before I pull it because I like to do my unilateral
I was talking more about squatting.
Squatting, the knee
knee straps.
Yeah, so leg press, I'll do it. Leg press, hack squat. Yeah, I'll always have my knee sleeves on.
How good are they?
Yeah, insane.
And knee sleeves good?
I
are
love
they better straps? I don't know. I've never done knee sleeves.
I believe that they serve two different purposes. So knee sleeves provide a bit of heat to your knee, right? So they allow it to prime them to warm up a bit more. Whereas straps themselves, depending on how tight you do them, they do give a bit of that bounce effect. So you do have a slight spot when you're using straps.
I find them, yeah.
Just because of how tight they are. Because I don't know if you notice, when you're bouncing out of it, you can actually literally bounce out of a squat when you've got straps on. Whereas with knee sleeves, it just provides that, warmth there to protect your knee essentially. Straps is a bit more assisted. That's why if you look in, competition powerlifting, assisted, you're wearing straps. When you're doing assisted lifts versus raw lifts, in raw lifts, you're not allowed to wear knee straps in a raw lift because it's counted as assisted. So when we talk about it in terms of hypertrophy, I do think that having straps has its benefits because it allows you to go heavier, which could create an argument for, more stress to that muscle.
Yeah, I think it does.
But for me, if I can get stronger, as strong as possible, just using sleeves without the need for straps, then I'm happy to do it. So
Yeah, well, I haven't strapped up for a long time, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure if. But I do know mentally, I feel confident. Like
you feel mad, yeah.
Something tells me I'm okay.
You're
I
getting
feel
rid of your strap. It's like
Yeah,
you're putting your armor on before you go to war.
Yeah,
You know?
and it just locks in the quads better,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I lock into the machine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like it gives me stability, but I think it's
Yeah.
it's a mind game. But yeah,
It's
but we have
preference.
we have the beauty of these, machines that have been developed. But I've got to say, like Metroflex has some incredible machines.
I love Metroflex.
And the thing is, as seemingly believing it's an organized chaos, and thinking things are clunky in a way. No, man, there's something about hitting the spot. I mean, you can't put that gym together easily. I mean, Manny's done an amazing job to put it together.
And Manny's a top bloke too.
Top
by the way.
bloke. Manny,
so
reach
much
out to you,
time
man.
for
Yeah.
it.
But obviously the guys in America where this originated from, but brought it here to Sydney, and Manny has doubled down on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like weights are just weights. Doesn't matter if they don't look the same, not the beautiful colours.
Yep.
But the stimulus at the moment, and
It's
also
the atmosphere.
and
It's
the
the
attitude.
environment,
I go in there and I get big just walking around with you guys.
It's the
I go,
environment
oh,
that you're in.
Yeah.
You're surrounded by, that the music that's playing in the background. It's not your average gym music at any time. It's not your pop culture bullshit.
No.
You've got Limp Bizkit playing there. You've got your hardcore rock band, your metalcore Parkway Drive. You're in there to fucking work, and you know that as soon as you walk through those doors.
And the boys and the girls.
Yeah,
I mean, the
culture.
Everyone's supporting a great moustache, even the girls.
The girls on TRT, other girls.
Let's not go there.
Look, it's a great atmosphere. It's a great environment to be a part of. The fact that there's competitors in there too, that
I think it's probably one of the best gyms in Sydney.
I agree. Well, that's why I
think
travel.
everyone should come and visit. Everyone should come and visit Metroflex. All right. Say Steve, but I'll give you my BSB number and account number. Don't give it to Manny. I'll just tell you mine. All right, so let's talk about 2021-22. As the second COVID lockdown hit, I was just about fed up with everything. I quickly realised no one was coming to save me, and if I didn't start working towards something, I'd either end up in debt or in jail. That's a big call. So I went back to my roots. Mascot's always been a dodgy area,
Yeah, Mascot.
But Mascot,
East Lakes,
the Greeks there,
the
the Greeks. I know Greeks around there, and a few Samians around there because I'm Samiotis. My background is Samiotis.
Yep.
But Mascot is like, I think Mascot is the divide between. So I think Newtown is the referee, and then you got Marrickville and Mascot.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll get you.
Back in the days.
Yeah.
And then they went to Earlwood.
Yeah, that's
It was
right.
either Mascot or Earlwood.
Yeah, that's right.
because Mascot boys and Mascot. And yes, the culture there. Yeah, I know two boys from there. Tony Delaveris. Do you know the Delaveri?
Nah.
Delaveri. Yeah. We used to do big bombs down at Cronulla, Gunnamatta Bay. So I was rebuilding my relationship with family, got back to church, doing what I love best, training, no official program, no official diet, just training 6 days a week, positive habits, tracking, and before you know it, you lost 40 kilos. Obviously, and this is what ignited my passion of bodybuilding. And I wanted to, and you had a signpost of Cutler with the foot stomp, and always looked at the physique thinking that's not reality. No one can ever achieve that. And to be fair, yes, but there is only one Jay Cutler. But who's to say that I can't look my best version for myself? And why can't I? And I decided to compete. And boy, did you go straight to the IFBB? Like you didn't waste any time, did you?
Yeah.
You went from 140 kilos to IFBB. How many people do that?
Yeah, it was. I mean, a lot of people.
Tell me about that journey.
A lot of people were calling me crazy. I mean, like I said, I do have
I'd call you
tendencies
crazy.
I do have tendencies to just go from 0 to 100.
Yes, you did.
Realistically speaking, I kind of knew I didn't really have a place in the. I wasn't ready for a competition like the IFBB. Even when I competed, like, look, I didn't look terrible in my first show. But for me was, if I'm going to compete, I want to know what I'm really up against. I want to know what I have to build to compete against in the future. So that was my mindset going into it. I wasn't going in there thinking I'm going to win it. I'm going to win my class. My mindset was, first of all, I want to see if I can go from just losing 40 kilos to then undertaking a contest prep. You know, first of all, can I actually do that? Do I have the bodybuilder in me to be capable of, you know, going through 16 weeks of hardcore dieting?
I'm starting to think, can I do it?
You know,
I've
yeah,
done it
it's
for a long time.
yeah, you know, that's the frame of mind that I was in. So, you know, I started speaking to a coach, a very old school coach. You know, and he was good. Like I said, you know, he was very old school mentality, you know, and he had me on a protocol that, you know, probably would be deemed as extreme nowadays by modern coaches. And it probably was a bit. It was, like I said, a very old school type of protocol. And yes, I grew and, you know, I got, you know, very strong. And I got pretty lean as well. It wasn't the right way for me to go about it. I probably should have waited a bit longer, dedicated more time to having a proper off season. But, you know, me being me, I want to jump straight into it. You know, I've got it set in my head. I want to compete October 2023, you know, and look, I'm glad that I did it again. You know, everything that we do is a lesson. You know, I take lessons from everything. Like Michael Lucy says, you never lose, you win or you learn.
No,
you know?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it was a learning opportunity. It was a very fun opportunity. I'm very happy that I got to do it. It gave me the criteria and it gave me, you know, the criteria to see what I'm actually up against and what I need to be able to beat if I'm going to be a successful bodybuilder.
What did your parents think of your build up to that comp?
To be honest, they were actually all for it.
Yeah,
like,
I know, of course.
Yeah, you know, when I told them, I said, listen, I'm taking this and this and this, you know, whatever, like Dad was shocked because Dad's very traditional, very old school. Mum, I probably get my craziness from her a bit, right? She's a bit more, like I said, she's more street smart, you know, she's more, you know.
Well, she's the one doing cooking. Modern. She's the one doing chicken and rice for you.
Exactly, yeah. So
she's your dietitian.
Yeah, dead set. So she knows how to wear everything down to a T. Now, look, I do a lot of my meal prep. She marinates it for me when I don't have time. But yeah,
the same thing.
Yeah, but you know, she'll put my rice on, like she'll do that, like I'll weigh everything up, but she'll make sure the rice is ready for me. Yeah, she's a legend.
My mum helped me so much.
Yeah, shout out to Mum. You know,
Mate,
thank her for
the places I couldn't reach to wax. My mum did it for me.
Yeah, hey, she shaved my whole body for the show, man. Literally everything.
The mums, mate. Mum, just get under there, will you? And do it, will you? Fuck it, just get over and done with.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can't believe I'm doing this to you.
Yeah. Exactly. Still to this day. So, you know,
See, I told you I'm bodybuilding.
Yeah,
I know bodybuilding, man.
It.
I've been there. I've been in the trenches. I just haven't gone on stage. Maybe one day. Maybe one day I'll go on stage.
But yeah, you know, look, they were all for it. They were just happy. I think for them, they were happy that I was doing something with my life that had meaning, that had purpose. And to me, bodybuilding gave me purpose.
Yeah,
you know,
towards a healthy kind of style.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't call, you know, PEDs exactly healthy, not the amount, but either way, look, the nutrition, the training program, you know, the habits that I built in place, I still consider to be, you know, healthier than 99% of what people are doing today. You know, even if I might be running, you know, PEDs or whatnot, the fact that, you know, I'm still doing my cardio 7 days a week, I'm eating, you know, I'm measuring everything that I eat, you know, I'm making sure that I'm having an adequate intake of, you know, protein, carbs, and fats. I'm getting healthy sources of fats. You know, I'm doing all that 365 days a week. Okay, I might run a bit of PEDs, you know. So the people that are
Let's not tell God that.
Yeah.
We haven't confirmed with him yet.
No, we haven't. No. But again, you know, there's a purpose to that. I wouldn't be taking, for me personally, I wouldn't be taking PEDs if it wasn't for bodybuilding, if it wasn't to be able to compete, to be the, you know, the best that I can.
I think I think it's fine what you're doing, but it's funny because when my kids asked me one time, my son said, "Have you taken steroids?" His name's Yanni. I said, "Oh, Yanni, couldn't you have asked me when I was 48?
Yeah,
like you asking me now."
Yeah.
So yeah, of course I'm not worried. As I say, and I mean, when I tell him, because I say, "Listen, man, I'm not telling you to do anything, but you're going to do anything, you come and tell me, so we can talk about it."
Yeah, exactly.
Not say you don't do it. So sometimes what you do is also helpful for others that can come and talk to you about it.
Well, 100%. And
which is even your brother or or other siblings or cousins or friends or young kids. sometimes it's us that need to go and step on landmines and battle through things and come back and hopefully say to them, look, we're going to go into some jungle here, but you're ready or don't go.
That's it. And I think for me, it's given me the opportunity to help educate other people and clients as well on what actual safe PED protocols are. I'm a massive advocate for education over just, complete don't take it, because, obviously I don't advocate for them, but if you're going to do it, make sure you know what the hell you're doing, because people can die from this shit. People can get seriously sick. People have died. A lot of bodybuilders are dropping dead because of a mixture of things. You can't just say that PEDs are the sole source of it, but yes, they do play into a mix, because we know of the associated, cardiovascular effects from, PEDs, left ventricular hypertrophy, things like that associated with abusing certain types of PEDs.
I can't believe what I took and I had no guidance.
Popping away. So having that guidance and having that education, which is really nice to see, even from, the IFBB pro that you had last week on, he does a lot of, what's his name again?
Jamie.
Jamie, that's right. Yeah, he does a lot of, PED education, through his Instagram. A lot of people, they have PED education through Instagram, and they say, look, these are the associated risks and, the benefits that you get from this compound. This is what you're risking if you're taking this. If you're going to do it, these are the things that you need to consider. My coach does the same thing. There's a lot of coaches out there doing the same thing. So I think it's a good thing. That's one of the benefits, I guess, of having it more out there or more sort of accepted, is that there's information out there for people to take, reputable information that comes from studies, because as we know, testosterone has been, used in humans since the 40s. The Germans started using it.
Right. So, well, apparently from...
is it even earlier?
Yeah. I mean, Dr. Ash told me back in 1903.
As early as that? Oh, well, there you go.
He's because he's a smart fellow.
Yeah.
He's men's physique, Dr. Ash.
Yep.
And he's also a veterinarian.
Yep.
And a dentist.
Yep.
Can play every instrument.
Yep.
Quite smart. Yeah, he's quite smart, right? Yeah. When I say smart. And I think he'll do a lengthy study to kind of like doing masters in the, so he said back in 1903.
Well,
so
there you go.
This I think we abuse things. We abuse alcohol. We abuse everything.
Right.
We abuse everything.
Glucose. We abuse sugar.
We abuse, and then we have pharmaceuticals and people manipulating us. And when we could go back to the basics, so look, some steroids are clean. I guess when I say cleaner, when I say cleaner, what I'm saying is maybe there was stuff taken, and then people saw it as. I mean, there's countries that fucking tobacco's clean.
Yeah.
Like there's countries where the young kids are smoking fucking tobacco, but by the time it reaches us, it's chemically and done and it's put to $1. Does that make sense? Like
that's right. Yeah.
Tobacco's a plant. Like I don't know. Like meaning. I mean, the funniest thing is the way they're talking about fucking mushrooms and marijuana. Like, I mean, it's hilarious anywhere we can make $1. Everything's an abuse, but
everything's a currency.
Everything's a currency. I just think, Look, I think fundamentally, I just know. You can't alter hard work, Mother Nature.
Right. Exactly.
And to build good muscle, you need 10 years.
Yeah.
But we're talking about, if you're in your 20s, but the thing is, like I said, just keep hitting it and stay, on the journey. The destinations are in and out.
Yeah.
Just stay on the journey. The journey, like I said, you pay dividends, man. Like I said, you got no idea. Your muscle maturity, especially late 20s, even 30s. Half the most magnificent sprinters in the world that are explosive are 29s and 31s because that's the different level of testosterone. So there's a lot of things in strength and muscle formation.
Right. Yeah. But it comes down to the work ethic. Like I said, no amount of steroids, no amount of any drug in the world can outwork, someone who's got a work ethic, once you have that work ethic in place, that's why.
And to build on even to have genetics and not have genetics is the work ethic.
That's right. Hard work will always beat genetics when genetic doesn't work hard.
That's right.
So you can have the shittest genetics in the world. Like look at Nick Walker on his first bodybuilding show.
Yeah.
He came in flat, I think he had issues with his prep, whatever. But anyway, take someone like him who you would think wouldn't have genetics for bodybuilding, back in 2011, 2012, whenever he first competed. Now look at 2025, he's a mass monster.
Yeah, man.
And a lot of bodybuilders are like that. But, and you can say, he's just escalated PEDs over time. It's like, no, he's worked harder and harder at refining anything that he can refine. And people, when they get to that level, like Derek Lunsford as well, Hardy Chupin, they've already got elite tier genetics, right?
Yeah.
But why do we see them working at 100% every single day of the week? Realistically, if anyone could get away with not putting in 100%, it'd be them,
Yeah,
right? So that's why I try and look at people like them who, already have the elite genetics, who, Seabum, he wouldn't have to train for 6 months and he'd still be able to get shredded in 4 weeks, and win the Olympia on stage if he wanted to.
That's right.
But they're putting in the effort every single day, regardless of what PEDs they're on, regardless of what, magic dose of whatever their coach has them on.
100%.
It doesn't make a difference at all. And that's what I think young men need to understand nowadays. And what's different in our generation than from your generation, it's that everyone's looking for a shortcut, a quick fix now. And those do not exist. It doesn't exist in business. It doesn't exist in work. It doesn't exist in physique development. If someone is shredded, someone is walking around that's built, like a tank, that he's put in the hard work, And the people that come in that ask, oh, what can I take for this? What can I take for this? They're usually the ones with the shit physique, or the ones that, because they haven't put in that effort, they haven't put in that foundational work. So it's time and it's delayed gratification. And that's what people need to understand in this generation. You need to be able to wait for things to happen,
and do the long run.
Do the long run, because nothing happens overnight.
There's guys that are, like I said, in their 50s, 40s.
Yeah.
It takes 1 year for you to put on 30 kilos, a fat bastard, and take up a bad habit.
Exactly.
You could have done 30 years of bodybuilding,
Yeah.
man, and you've given it away in 1 year, 2 years. It's constant
Yeah.
chipping at it and bringing
Exactly.
it back,
Exactly.
working on it, keeping it there.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop.
100%.
It doesn't stop. And I love it that it doesn't stop. I love that.
It
doesn't stop.
forces you to be on point and to hold yourself accountable,
Yeah,
which is
it
where,
does. It's the only thing you got.
which is exactly where it transfers over to your work ethic, in business and, to whatever it is that you do.
100%.
Everything falls in line together, ever since I started taking it so seriously, regardless of the competing aspect, just living the life of a bodybuilder,
That's why.
it encouraged me and gave me the confidence to go, to open up my own coaching business, to start invest, a lot of money into, starting that up with my brother and, taking the dive from leaving the government job to now, working at a supplement shop to be able to network with more people. It's bodybuilding has given me that. Holding myself accountable has given me that because of those habits that I've had to put in place.
Yeah, 100%.
And whether you want to be a bodybuilder or not, I think all men should be able, should be doing that to an effect.
That's right.
Because it is very hard to succeed nowadays if you don't have that work ethic. You're not going anywhere. You're not going to buy a house. You're not going to sit there and travel around, fairyland like you see every model on Instagram doing. That's all fake. And that's only 1% of the world,
Yeah.
Most people don't have that luxury. So
Yeah, it's look. Even doing this business.
Yeah.
It's sometimes I have to throw my phone to one side. It drags me in to look at the numbers. I forget to do work sometimes just to look what everyone's doing, and then I get caught up in it. Like I said, you just got to go back to the fundamentals.
Exactly.
Everything is fundamentals. And like I said, turning up to the gym. What have we did? We do COVID lockdown. We did that, and then we got here. How hard should you be training to get results you actually need? Literally show RIR, reps in reserve. But the newbies, lifters, could be a little bit different. What's that?
So the whole RIR thing refers to reps in reserve in, exercise science. And that's the research that we currently have that tells us what the effective rep ranges of hypertrophy are.
Yep.
So we've got effective reps for hypertrophy, which is between 5 and 30. So anywhere between those is where we know that muscle tissue will accrue. And then we've also got how many reps in reserve we should be leaving or we need to be doing in order for that stimulus to also occur. So the 1 to 3, I like to think of it as a proxy of what rep range you should be considering, right, when you are doing specific exercises. Now, this obviously changes depending on what needs to be prioritized and what you can slightly go easier on, let's say, right? So when it comes to newer lifters, though, people that don't know anything about, RIRs or, knowing how hard to train or whatever, getting a good assessment of figuring out what total muscular failure is. So when you're performing that dumbbell curl, when you physically cannot curl it anymore, you can't perform or complete that rep, you've hit zero RIR. That's complete failure, right?
Yeah.
Zero RIR. I think it's important that people know what that feeling is like because when you go to then do your programming and figure out where you're going to allocate all your volume and whatnot, you know at least, okay, I'm getting close to that period of, I'm towards the second half of the set. I've got in my set here allocated, between 8 to 12, right? So how do I know that I'm going to get to that 12 reps and hit failure at that 12 reps, right? We use the reps in reserve thing. So you start by escalating it slowly. So I like to, for example, in the first week of a training program, because I've just come off a deload, whatever, I'll work within 3 RIR. I'm not pushing to complete failure just yet.
Okay.
As I progress through the weeks of my training program, it's getting closer to that failure, 0 RIR.
Yeah.
So second week, I might go to 2, third week, by the fourth week, I'm going to failure. So I know that if in week 1 of my program, if I've got my rep range 8 to 12, that I hit 12 reps, but I still had 3 RIR, I know to increase the weight.
Yeah.
Because I know the next week I want to go to 2 RIR. Things like that. All these things are just tools that we can use as proxies as to how hard we want to be training, how much effort, perceived effort we want to be giving in the gym, for specific exercises. Generally speaking, to sort of simplify all that, train until you essentially can't complete the rep anymore. That's what I like to say. So if you have a given rep range, if your rep range is 8 to 12, and say you're doing incline dumbbell chest press, and say, okay, my rep range is 8 to 12, if you get to 12 reps and you still could have performed another 4 or 5, why are you stopping at 12 reps? Like, how is that an effective set then? How are your muscles being challenged?
I've noticed that myself lately. I've changed around.
Yeah, exactly. So when you have yourself that given rep range, right, if you're easily getting 12 reps or reaching the top end of that rep range, then either you're not challenging yourself hard enough with mechanical tension, so you're not lifting heavy enough, right? Or, that's essentially what it is. You're not lifting, you're not using a load that's going to challenge you to the point of creating a stimulus.
So all these 3 sets of 10, 2 sets of this, it doesn't, sometimes you just got to reassess it on weight.
3 sets of 10 is good if those 3 sets are working sets.
That's right.
And if all those 3 sets are working sets, by the third set, you shouldn't really be able to achieve 10 reps.
That's right.
That's why we use a proxy. If you're going all out to failure on the first set, and then you're doing the same thing on the second set, and then the same thing on the third set, your rep should naturally drop by the time you get to the end of that third set. Because fatigue has accumulated from the first 2 sets. Now, that's, like I said, if you're going to failure. Now, if I'm doing 3 sets, I'll never take all 3 sets to failure. My first set will be it'll still be a working set, but that's when I might leave 2 RIR. So, rate of perceived exertion between 1 to 10, 10 being complete, I can't lift it anymore. I'll usually do either an 8 or a 9 for the first working set. This is after I've already done my warm-up sets. And then as I get to the second set, I might push closer to failure. So I might, say if I had a spot, I might have been able to do 1 more rep. So we're getting pretty damn close to failure. Then third set is balls to the wall. I'm literally struggling to get that dumbbell above my head, with all my strength, no matter what. That's the growth set right there. All 3 sets are growth sets, but that's the set where it's like, okay, I can't perform another set even if I wanted to. That's when you're done, move on to the next exercise. So I like to pyramid my working sets up to that 1 big set, like Dorian Yates did. 1 or 2 big sets, 1 or 2 big sets of barbell rows, and then it's like I can't do anymore, even if I wanted to.
And you're fatiguing the muscle.
And you're fatiguing the muscle, exactly. So there's no point, there's no point adding an extra set or an extra exercise if you've cooked yourself to the point where you're gonna be you're gonna be affecting recovery.
No, 100%. So tell me then, the biggest thing about shoulder overall development is exercising the target more on your medial and rear delts.
That's right.
So more raises for medial delts. We get so much stimulus for the anterior delts through just pressing. Chest press, front delt, hits regardless. So why add more stress to that? Which we're talking about more stress, So to get that 3D capped delt, medial and rear emphasis is focusing more on your medial and rears.
100%. So
I was thinking about that when I was writing it because I've been hitting my front delts a lot.
Look, there's nothing wrong with training your front delts, but we typically, if we're doing a lot of chest press and if we're doing a lot of chest focused movements, our shoulders are getting involved, the front part of our shoulders only. So they're getting a lot of indirect stimulus, right, from training our other muscle groups, predominantly chest. And if we're doing 2 chest sessions a week, which a lot of people do, then you're also training your anterior delt indirectly twice a week. If you're doing a shoulder day or, a shoulder and arm day or, whatever, and you're training your anterior delt, you might be the trouble that you run into there is you are accumulating more systemic fatigue overall. So volume that could be better allocated towards your medial and your rear delts that you could then be potentially, I won't call wasting, but you're depleting yourself on a movement that might not give you as much benefit as if the volume were to be allocated towards your medial and your rear delts. So it's like, it's like you're losing charge from those batteries,
Yeah.
So you're going into, a shoulder and delt session, with batteries fully charged, right? If you're going to do a shoulder press, right, as your first movement when you've just trained chest the day before, or, you've already gotten some sort of anterior delt movement from another exercise or whatever, and then you go and, you go into your shoulder session with knowing that you want to hit your overall shoulder, you're losing a percentage of that charge, right, of your total training session energy on front delts when you don't really need to.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, people that love doing overhead presses, I'm all for, go for it. They're good foundational strength movements. It's a compound exercise. It's great for building strength. But if you want to actually have capped delts, which in bodybuilding is what we want to have that nice, 3D look, that, that symmetry. We want to perceive that we look wider than we actually are.
Yeah.
Side delts and rear delts are massive in giving that look.
Yeah.
So emphasizing all your volume or most of your volume towards hitting the medials and the rears is going to be more of a benefit for you than just doing overhead pressing and things like that. Because don't forget, overhead pressing being a compound movement, it's going to accumulate a lot more fatigue than a raise will, because you're using more, you're using more energy, you're using more, more muscle recruitment to be able to do that press, as opposed to just medial delts, which is an isolation movement, and rear delts. So that's my sort of, theory or my opinion on that when it comes to overall shoulder development.
Yeah, no, it made me think.
Yeah.
It made me want to rejig a few things.
Yeah.
But definitely I'm trying to get more capped and a little bit thicker side frames.
Yeah, focus on your sides and your rear.
I need to focus a little bit more. But it did make me think a lot. So in 2022, I successfully secured a full-time, well, you don't have the government job anymore, but you did secure that job. And it was able to pay for your bodybuilding expenses over the next 2 years. You had your head down, trained, and your ass up, paid for a coach, and you ended up competing in 2023 Season B for the IFBB at 87 kilos. Wow, that's...
light.
Well, I'm 87 now. That's the thing. What are you weighing now?
Now, before I got sick, I was 104. Now I'm about 101 this morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm 101. Jesus Christ. No, I'm 89 at the moment, which will bring my total weight loss down to 50 kilos, man. Since then, I've studied to become a personal trainer whilst having a full-time job. Started my own online coaching business a few months ago with my brother, who has also had his own massive weight loss transformation. Yeah. Our goal now is to help men and women who are in similar position. We both were in a few years ago to achieve transformation of a lifetime. Eventually, as I come to upskill myself in the coaching field, I wish to take on prep clients and coach bodybuilders. This is where my true passion lies. Our business name is Metamorph Physique, which derives from the Greek word metamorphosis, which means transform. Our motto is transform your body to transform your life, as any transformation is just as mental as it is physical. And I think that's where I got your quote. You said, become the person
you were proud of.
That you're proud of, because I watched your video. Yeah. Tell us about Metamorphosis and all that story that I just said with yourself and Nick.
Yep.
And for those to join you guys and their journey to not only transform their body and life, but become the person they're proud of. So tell us more.
Yeah, so we had the idea, both of us having our passion for the lifestyle and, actively being involved in the fitness industry and the gym and whatnot. And my brother actually just competed in the ICN because he's natural. So, and I helped him prep for that. And he's completely carnivore as well. So when we talk about grass-fed and all that stuff, my brother is, very, advocate for, just eating high fat, high protein from organic sources. So we did his whole prep on literally just steak, beef mince, all grass-fed eggs, duck fat, ghee. That's what he was eating.
Yeah.
So, we both share the same passion. Like I said, we feed off each other with our energy. So about halfway through last year, I'd always wanted to do it. I told him, I said, why don't we start our own business? Why don't we help other people? We've both been there. My brother was, he got to 100 kilos at his heaviest, and he's a lot shorter than me and a lot smaller frame. So 100 kilos for him was big.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, look, let's use our experience plus our knowledge that we've learned, and try and help other people, because unlike a lot of personal trainers out there, we've done the full 180. We haven't gone from skinny to built. We've gone from obese to shredded.
Yeah.
And not many people can say that they've done that and then go and help other people achieve the same thing. So yeah, for me it was
plus you've gone to different federations.
That's right. That's the other thing too.
Different journeys.
Exactly. That's right.
He's been bashed. You didn't get bashed.
Yeah, so, and it's funny because me and Nick have actually been working together for a long time. At Qantas, we were working together.
Okay.
So we had that job together for 4 years. Then we went to FedEx when we got made redundant. We were doing parcels. Then we went to Woolies and doing pick packing. We've had every job up until the government one. That's where he drew the line. He's like, I'm not working for them, So,
yeah, he's not going donuts.
Yeah. So, whereas me, I saw the money. I put in an application just for the lols, and I ended up getting it. So, anyway, but... yeah, we decided let's start something. Let's do it. And then I came up with a name actually on the way to the gym. Yeah. I'm driving to the gym, with Nick, and I'm like, what should we call it? And I'm thinking about, okay, we've both transformed. Greek, okay, metamorphosis, okay, awesome, metamorph. Let's cut that word down in half. Metamorph. It's it sounds alright. It's good. It's ours as well. It's original. That's the other thing too. Yeah. I didn't want to call it Vav, George and Nick Fitness, or I wanted something original. I wanted something that resonated with both of us. So yeah, we pretty much got to work, invested a fair bit of money into getting our website done up, and learning how to run a business, which we're still learning now. It's a massive, things of up and down, and, learning and making mistakes and losing money and then whatnot. So and we're still very new, so I'm still learning. It's getting to the point now where it is slowly starting to grow. More people are finding out about us, which is what we want. We're getting more active with our content, trying to educate more people. So it's just now about seeing how many people I can help. Essentially transform themselves and feel the best version of themselves, and essentially give them their confidence back, especially men. I think that a lot of men, especially when they get into, and actually a couple of my clients are in the 40s and 50s.
Okay, yep.
So I think that a lot of men at that age, they find themselves that they are lost once they get to that, obese body weight, or they get into these habits that they think are unbreakable. And a lot of people say, my dad included, would say, it's harder at our age to change when we had all these habits instilled over so many years. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't mean it's impossible.
No, that's right.
It's not impossible. You can completely turn your life around at 70 years old if you really wanted to. If you're physically able to do it, you can do anything. You just got to put your bloody mind to it. So that's what I try and instill to,
The sooner the better.
Exactly. So with my clients, I have a very empathetic approach to them, because I try and firstly relate to what they're going through. And it's honestly, a lot of it is psychological.
What are most going through?
Well, look, one of them, for example, he struggles with, he was struggling with his libido because he was, so overweight to the point where, his performance in the bedroom was being affected. To him, that crushes his confidence. As it does. That's men. That's one of the things that makes us men. Our ability to do that. So that was affecting him. He was sick of pretty much living a lifestyle where he'd get out of breath getting out of bed, things like that. So it's my job in that instance to firstly be able to relate to him and to be empathetic and to show compassion firstly and say, listen, okay, you're going through this. I understand. You need to know that you've been supported first and foremost. Not give me your money, this is your plan, stick to this. Because that's what a lot of people do. A lot of people are money hungry. They want to sign on the client. They want to just give them the program, sell a high ticket item, bang, I've got him for the next 12 weeks, cash. I'm not like that. I don't think it's the type of person that I am. Yes, it does mean a little bit more work for me, and I have to spend more time getting to know the clients. But if it means that they can create real sustainable habits and that they can actually trust me to help them, I'm more than willing to give my time if it means that I'm going to be able to do that for people.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, that's more important than any paycheck. For me, actually seeing someone, you know, be happy with what they've achieved, thinking that they've achieved something that they couldn't ever before, or trying a million other people that don't give a shit about them. Me being able to be the person to actually help them do that, it gives me more, you know, gratification, and it gives me more satisfaction than any paycheck will. So that's why I'm in it. That's why I love doing it, because I know what it meant for me when I changed my life around. And then obviously to scale it from there, it's about me upskilling myself, which I'm currently doing. I'm doing John George J3 University program, which is specifically designed for bodybuilding contest prep coaching, which I'm loving at the moment. That just dives deeper into dives deeper into blood work analysis, proper PED protocols, things like that, a bunch of case studies. That's for when I start taking on contest prep clients, which is my ultimate goal, because that's where my passion lies. But for the time being, helping out as many, young men, old men, just anyone of any age, men and women that I can, just to help turn their life around. And Mum was one of those people. She was our first client, not that she was really a client, but her transformation I shared on Instagram. She dropped 30 kilos over a year, and she's been yo-yo dieting over the course of her whole life. She's been skinnier, she's been fat, she's been fat again. And then it took for me and Nick to actually instill habits into her and say, listen, first of all, this isn't a diet, this is a lifestyle. The food that we're going to put you on, the food that we want you to be eating, this is the food that you should be consuming regardless. It's not a diet. It's what's good for you, what's going to benefit you, and then what food you can enjoy. They're two separate things. So it took a while sort of getting that into her head, because Mum being Mum, she doesn't want to think that she can learn from us or whatever. But in the end, she stuck to it, and I'm very proud of her. That she's been able to do it, and now she motivates Dad to get into the gym. She's trying to get my sisters in the gym. It's great, and she's a lot less moody. I can tell certain foods would actually affect her mood. So when she would flood herself with carbohydrates, she'd get brain fog. So I knew that carbohydrates weren't really, the best thing for her. And that may not necessarily be the same for everyone. I thrive off carbohydrates because I need them for energy. I'm, up to, at the moment, I'm on 630 grams a day of carbs, which isn't even that much. But, I thrive off that for energy. I need it. But for her, the keto style was the more realistic approach, and it seemed to work. So, that's what she's been doing, and for a lot of my clients, that's the type of style that they're happy to stick to, because it means that they are full and they kept satiated with eating meals with higher fat content. It keeps you fuller for longer. You're not craving the glucose, the sugar from the carbohydrates. So it works for a lot of people. They actually end up getting off medication. So one of them at the moment, his blood pressure was, I think it was up to like 180 over something, his systolic, which is very high. And I've managed to bring it down to 120 over 80, within the course of 6 weeks. And he's on 2 different types of blood pressure medication, that haven't been doing anything for him.
Oh, that's great.
So,
they could do it themselves if they had the discipline and had some structure, but you guys come along and get that into them. And like I said, and I think what coaching isn't all glamorous. Like it's not all bikini models and men's physique and bodybuilders, which you'd like to get into the prep world. They're not all that Metroflex, So how did you find you doing IFBB and your brother doing ICN? What did you think of the two? Because you got to experience yourself doing it, but then being there part of your brothers. What did you find? How did you find that?
Very, very different competitions. Obviously, the IFBB is more hyped up. There's more testosterone around. There's like literally and figuratively. Look, they're two different experiences. That the ICN is it's a lot smaller show. It's fun to be a part of. I think there's a little bit more sort of, camaraderie there, in the sense that everyone's more friendly with each other.
Right.
Whereas the IFBB, you've always got the group of, that's just, bang, I'm there to win, I'm there to, to smash it. I want to smash everything out of the park. So they're two different experiences. One seemed like the IFBB just seemed very serious, everyone's there. And maybe that's because when I went there as a competitor, I had my own mindset going into it. I was just very locked in, just focusing on what I'm going to do on stage and trying to hit my poses. But the ICN, being there as a supporter and as, my brother, helping to coach him, I was there backstage with him. It was a completely different experience, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was mad. I was helping him, touch up and tan. I was getting him to do posing rounds for me, figuring out what I needed to feed him to keep his fullness. And because he was only eating fat, it was different for him because, you know, fat holds differently. Like in terms of it, I don't know how long it takes for the body to be able to absorb fat and for it to turn into a look of fullness as opposed to carbs. With carbs, you know, if you have rice cakes with honey on them, within 20 minutes, half an hour, you're going to be full as a house, right? Whereas with fats, I didn't know how long that process would take, but lucky for us, because he's only been eating fat and his body's entered ketosis, his liver's producing enough glycogen by itself in order to keep him full and using fat as an energy source. So for him, you know, I just gave him a big teaspoon of peanut butter. I said, "Here, have some salt." And then as he was posing, I saw him getting harder on stage. I'm like, "Oh shit, this is working." You know? So it was mad to see that. Then he came back and I said, "Oh, we're going to do this again because you're on again in 20 minutes." Another teaspoon of peanut butter, like half a brick of this keto bar that he was having just to, you know, maintain fats. And then he kept working. He was looking fuller and fuller every time he got up on stage. So, yeah, it was a really exciting experience for me. So I loved it, you know, and the fact that everyone's there as well. You know, most of them are natural. I don't think many of them, you know, are lying about it in the ICN, which was also good to see. I mean, some of them are a bit questionable, but yeah, for them,
we'll leave that with God.
Yeah,
you know.
But you know,
that one. Imagine going to heaven and goes, "Yeah, like what? You're IPB. You come on ICN. You took drugs over there. Oh my God, I knew he was on it." Hey, what are those guys that they're ICN, but they were natural?
Exactly.
No way. They didn't get into the pearly gates.
That's the worst, mate. You're lying about it.
At least IFBB, you're being honest. God says,
that's it, exactly. It is what it is.
Drugs, you're in.
Yeah.
ICN, party, you lie to everyone over there. Exposed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, ICN. Be careful, guys, in ICN. I love that.
Good fun.
Mate, you guys have gone from zero to hero very quickly. Well done. You just got to stay there now.
We've got to try to get better. That's the thing.
Better, yeah, most definitely. You can't
get comfortable.
So just quickly tell me about that guy that in that photo, the fat bastard with the cigarette. He's sitting there. What was he like? Is the same guy like now?
Certain qualities, like my personality, I don't think has changed. But so. I was a lot more I didn't have a filter then. I didn't have now I try and...
The photo also shows, I suppose, not happy, meaning maybe were you kind of more pessimistic? Or I'm not saying... I don't think you can... Not many people can produce optimism, meaning... And like Chris. Like, Chris... Are you happy, Chris? Oh, he's happy.
You found the meaning of life.
He's happy. He's happy. Yeah. No, he's happy. But he's not like me, right? Yeah. And like I said, I'm saying to you, I don't think you can manufacture. You probably inside you are an optimistic maybe person, half glass full. But I think that weight and that look didn't seem like. No, you gave a fuck producing that.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It looked like you were happy just to be angry.
It was, look, it was always in the back of my mind. I knew I was fat. I wasn't one of those people that are fat and just say it is what it is. I'm at capacity, I don't care. Like I always knew that I could be better.
Okay.
So that was all, and I think that fed into the anger as well because I knew I wasn't doing anything about it either.
Yeah.
So that just fed into the anger and just fed into the more bad habits and and just smoking my problems and gambling my problems away and drugs and all that sort of shit. But it's in saying that I think I was probably a bit more fun to be around when I was that person as well because I kind of didn't give a shit. I'd crack a lot more jokes. I was less serious. Now I think I'm probably a bit a bit too serious sometimes. But look, in saying that,
I think the fat bastard was serious. It looks like a serious guy there, but I think no. But what I'm saying is, I don't think you can put this on. I just think that person was holding you back.
Yeah,
and I think you can. Sometimes we can use. We create a character with the image we portray. So maybe that guy was a bit of a gangster. But I'm saying is maybe he wasn't a true gangster.
No, look deep down.
I don't think he was a true gangster.
Deep down, I'm not because
I think you can be a gangster.
Yeah,
but I think deep down.
Look, if shit needs to get serious, it'll get serious. Yeah. But and I think every man should have the ability to be able to unlock that if they need to.
That's right.
And I think there's all these stoic quotes about about people saying it's more dangerous for a man to have the ability to unlock that rather than a man who is unable to You know, it's there's I butchered that, but there's heaps of, you know, quotes like that, and they do have an element of truth to them, because at the end of the day, we are the protectors. You know, we're men. We're meant to provide and protect for our families and for our wives, and you know, that's how it's supposed to be. So, yeah, definitely, I definitely have that inside of me, and it's, you know, but deep down, in terms of that sort of street shit, you know, that's not me. And I realized very quickly that wasn't the type of person who I was, because I didn't
think it's you.
Yeah,
I think you manufactured it, but I don't think it's you.
Yeah, it didn't resonate with my family values, and that's why I think I was lucky to get out the way that, you know.
And where you are now is perfect. Yeah,
that's right. So, and now I feel like I've found my community, the people that I can vibe with, you know, the people that share the same common goals and interests, and you know, and what they say is very true. You are who you surround yourself with.
100%, man.
You know, and the people that I've surrounded myself with, you know, like-minded people that, you know, love the same passion that I do, that are business-driven, goal-driven, you know, family-driven. Family morals are probably the most important things out there. All my best friends, they're either engaged, getting engaged, or having kids.
Yeah,
you know, their wives are all beautiful people. You know, their partners are all beautiful people. None of this toxic bullshit that we see in modern-day relationships, you know. The mothers want to be mothers. You know, they want to raise their kids. There's no sort of disturbance between what a male role is and what a female role is. There's none of that arguing bullshit. You know, they know what their roles are. And it's important to appreciate the different gender roles.
Sometimes we're good at what we do best.
That's right.
You know?
Exactly.
I agree. I think you've come full circle. I think you're just back to where you were.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, I think the fundamentals of your faith and the fundamentals of what that distilled in you has distilled in you today. I think everything else was, you know, just surface level frustrations and angers and not being understood, and probably hang around with the wrong people, and also getting to this point. I mean, it takes a journey to get to this place, but thankfully at 24, like I said, from this point on, like I said, sky's the limit. Like I said, you're with your people, you train, you enjoy it, and you need to reflect back and look at that person and say, well, you know, he wasn't happy. But I said, I think, I just can see this is who you are, because when I look at that photo, the guy sitting there with a cigarette, he doesn't look happy, but I think it's all surface level, not happy. I think deep down, because I said to somebody, I was saying, to Kiara, I was saying, you know, your world around you is good, but your world internally is shit.
Yeah.
Right? And I said, my world externally looks like shit, but I've got a good internal world, and I prefer a good internal world. So most importantly, your internal world needs to be good, which you can create a relatively good external world. You know what I mean? Yep. And I think where you were before, your external world wasn't very good. And your internal world, you could hang in there, but just enough. Yeah. Now you've gone internal, and you're fixing your external world, which is good. So obviously that photo that we're coming towards the end now, that photo of you transform up on stage in your, I don't know what that orange or reddish briefs that they were. What
color?
Red.
Yeah.
They were red
trunks.
Okay. So I'm going to go to both. I'm going to go here. There you are doing a full muscular. Yeah. And you've got the caption, the start of a journey to the top. We will be making some big improvements in the months to come. So I want to ask you, so how are we going? How did 2024 go? And here we've got, provided all goes well, I will be competing at the end of 2025 in Season C, September, with a much improved package under the direction of my coach, George Wilson, with Flex Success, and continue to strive to be better as a bodybuilder, a man, and a business person. So tell us, tell us about that caption. How did 2024 go, and how are we looking 2025?
Yeah, so 2024, in terms of bodybuilding and training progression, is probably the best year I've had to date.
2024,
Yeah. So post-show, coming out of post-show, you've got the post-show rebound and things like that. And I was actually, surprised at how disciplined I was to keeping it to just, like a week or two of eating kind of what I wanted. A lot of people tend to blow out post-show massively. And honestly, I reckon that post-show period, that 4 to 6 weeks after the show where your hunger signaling and hormones are through the roof, is harder than the actual prep because you don't have another goal in sight, like not in near sight anyway. And it's just like, okay, I'm out of prep. Why am I still dieting? Because you still have to keep yourself calorie restricted for your body to be able to rebuild back up to those calories that you were on before.
I feel like, I haven't done a prep, but I feel like after a comp and a bit of that refeed, I sometimes think you could look even better. Maybe you're not staged.
Yeah. Initially, yes. Like I was full as a house. I had veins coming out of everywhere.
2 weeks later, it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it was insane. Yeah.
A couple of kilos on and you're like, fuck.
Yeah, it was insane. But after that, the problem is that your body will start to accrue fat very quickly at a rapid rate because it's what it's craving, it's what it hasn't had, right? So, because don't forget, we're not getting lean, we're getting stage lean. So when you're talking about 5-6% body fat on stage, some even leaner, depending on what your genetics are, that's not very healthy at all to be in for, any period of time. So your body, any nutrients that it's absorbing, any energy source, even carbs, it's going to prioritize moving those to fat. So you have to be very careful with how you escalate your calories back up to a maintenance dose where you're putting on a sufficient amount of body fat to be healthy, but also putting yourself in the best position to put on muscle tissue. And for me, because it was my first time doing it, under the direction of a new coach as well, I did struggle, I won't lie, but I stayed pretty true to the plan. But I realized once I got back into the off season properly, how little muscle I actually had compared to a lot of the other bodybuilders. So you see, like I put on fat quite quickly, and then within a couple of months, I'm like, oh shit, I'm not actually that muscular. Like it's,
that's the problem. I think people competing too early.
That's right, exactly.
They mistaken what's over the top, and when there's nothing underneath, and you shed back.
Exactly.
Some people, honestly, I've seen Ethiopians look more muscular than people on stage. Some people, I think you need. Yeah. I think getting to the stage is a good idea, but I think that sometimes they push people too quickly to the stage.
Yeah.
I think so. I don't know.
I agree. Look, I think you need...
And I think they've got to be careful, man, because what I'm seeing is, I don't know it's underlining, but they're looking at it too much as a business, which it is a business, I get it. And you've got the sponsors, but the registration fees to get just fucking pelicans up there.
Yeah, I spent $600, $700 just to get up on stage.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you shouldn't have gone. You're pretty good, but what I'm trying to say to you is, like I said, just make the stage look good, guys.
Yeah.
Like a beauty pageant's meant to be a beauty pageant, and you make money not so much just on competitors. You want the crowds to come and pay for seats to watch a spectacle. But too many people are looking at registration fees and come on. That's not the crowd.
Yeah, so I think for me that was definitely one of the lessons. So that's why I decided not to compete last year because we thought it'd be best to and even this year, like I said, I'm hoping we're tracking for season C.
Yeah, but it's all right if you don't.
But again, it's a conversation I'm going to have with my coach and seriously ask him. Listen, am I going to be competitive? Going into this lineup, knowing who's competing. Otherwise, if I'm not ready, I'm not ready. I don't want to go there and not make first call out, for example. So because I know how hard I work to do this. So for me, I'd rather wait until I'm ready to present a physique to the stage that I know will both blow myself and blow other people away and say, okay, wow, this was how we looked a couple of years ago. Who's this? Like, that's what I want to go with.
So first call out, it's a big call, is it? I've never heard this call out thing, but first call out, everyone. No, I've heard. I've seen first call out, but I've never realised how important first call out is.
Look,
what does first call out mean exactly? I've never really asked that question. I mean, I'm guessing I know what it is.
Yeah, look,
but I've heard it a few times. People go, "Oh, I work towards first call out," right? And then they go, "I've worked out to be top 5, and then I've worked out to want to come third and first." And
I think it's just knowing. I think for me and for other bodybuilders, I'm sure they can resonate with this. It's just mentally knowing that you actually have a place in the lineup. So when you're making first call out or you're in the mix of that top 5, top 6, whatever, you know that you've earned your place up there and that you deserve to be up there. Because a lot of us, I think we doubt ourselves, and the more we, the more we improve and the more that we get better. Like it's hard for us because we look at ourselves in the mirror every day and critique ourselves like, okay, shit, I could be fuller here, I could be less fat here, I could have more muscle and definition there. It's hard to see the long-term progress, when we're looking at ourselves and critiquing ourselves every day. And we do that even more when we get close to stage lean. We think, oh shit, I look like crap. You look better than 99% of the people walking the earth right now. But because you're comparing yourself to the best in not only your division, but then the Olympians and whatnot, you start to compare yourself to the likes of them and said, okay, well, I look shit compared to them. I've got more work to do.
Fuck. What a mental game that is.
Yeah, exactly. And yes, it's good to an extent because it pushes you to be better and to get better each time. But it's dangerous in the sense that it can really affect your mental health, and that's when you can be doing things like I said, competing for the wrong reasons. It's not because you want to beat this person or this person. You need to remember, and I need to remember too, that the reason why we compete in bodybuilding is because we love the sport and we love training. Not because we're trying to be better than this guy, but to bring back to the first call out thing, because we love the sport so much, because we want to win, being in that mix, knowing that you're in that mix, it adds that excitement to it. It's like, oh shit, I'm a chance here. I'm a chance of my name being called out by the judges, It's not like I'm in the top 10 or, I'm in, outside of the top 5. Oh, okay, as soon as I walk off stage, I know I won't be called back. Then, it's over. As soon as you walk off stage, if they don't call you back and start comparing you, then it's like, okay, I've had my 2 minutes of fame now. That's it. Like, it's not really exciting. You don't feel like a competitive athlete. So I think that's where that first call out thing has its significance. It's like, okay, I know that I've gone from third or fourth or second call out to first call out. It's a measure of progress. It is. It's a measure of progress from how far you've come. So that's why I think it's important, and that's why I want to use that as my own proxy to say, okay, if I'm first call out worthy, I'll compete. Otherwise, back in the fucking trenches.
Okay, first call out worthy.
Yeah.
I've got I don't know. I think I just want to beat everyone. That's why I don't compete. I'm a sore loser.
I mean, I do too. Don't get me wrong, I do
I'm
too. But you got to have respect for the boys that have been doing it for years.
I'm a sore loser. But also, I'm probably going to compare to them and think, fuck, they look good. Because when they're next to you, you forget what you look like.
You
and
spin
when you're
out.
looking, and you go, fuck, look at that guy's arms. Are my arms like that?
Yeah, exactly.
But you're up there competing with him. I guess they are. So tell us about the big misconception of needing to spend so much money on supplements without taking into account what you are taking and what your training goals are.
Yep.
Your top 3 supplements are: number 1, creatine.
That's right. Yep. So creatine monohydrate, energy carrier of cells, boosts adenosine triphosphate. So essentially, I am a massive advocate that everyone should be taking creatine, especially because I know that most people aren't consuming enough red meat. Everyone's telling, the whole world's telling everyone, don't consume red meat, cholesterol, this bullshit. So because of that, most people are listening to that. So they're missing out on creatine, which is essential because it is the building block of, it helps boost performance dramatically in the gym. It's the most researched supplement that exists, proven to be performance enhancing.
But when did that come into effect? It came into effect late in time.
Creatine?
Yeah.
The actual research, I think, has only been in the last 10 years or so, where they've said we can definitely
I think
say
creatine came in, no joke, like the big conversation in creatine was very late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Creatine.
Yeah.
Like when it
hit the shelves properly?
Properly.
Yeah.
Late
So
90s,
the
early
research
2000s.
to support it, because all the studies they've done, because everyone's using it now.
Because I used creatine
Yep.
back in the late 90s,
Yeah.
2000, but it had a lot of water retention back then.
I did it?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I was like a balloon.
Yeah.
I went,
Yeah.
my
So-
clothes couldn't fit me.
Yeah. So it does hold like an
Little bit
amount
of
of
water,
sort of intracellular fluid, but they've refined it.
They've refined it, but back then it wasn't refined. So, man, I looked like the Goodyear blimp.
Yeah.
But I did feel bigger.
Yeah.
But you could poke me, and it was like,
Yeah.
it took half an hour for the dam to fucking
So is
spread
it
the water.
creatine mixed in with SUS 250 or something?
Honestly, man, you got no idea how much I took it, and I went, what the fuck happened
Yeah,
to me there? I was
yeah.
putting on my clothes, and I...
Yeah.
Sorry, creatine, that's one.
Creatine,
Number two,
great supplement.
what do you
Yeah.
think of, quickly, what do you think of glutamine?
Glutamine's great too. I use it every day.
I take glutamine
10
after
grams a
workout.
day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I use it in the morning and I use it intra-workout as well.
What's good for glutamine?
Glutamine's good because it helps with a lot of things. It's an essential amino acid that essentially helps the process of muscle protein synthesis occur. So it encourages it. And it also helps in digestion too. It's very good for your gut health. So for me, because I'm pushing a lot of food, even when I'm not pushing food, I'll keep it in there just to help with a bit of gut health, just making everything work in synergy together and just to help everything digest, things like that. That's what glutamine's really good for as well.
So you take it after, but also during?
I take it. No, I take it in the morning with my green shake. Usually it has a bit of glutamine in it, but I'll put some more in anyway. Yeah, that and my electrolytes. I do first thing in the morning. I'll hydrate with sodium and electrolyte powder, just to get the body flowing, get everything started, get my metabolism ready for the day. It also makes me feel good, hydrating in the morning because you deplete yourself overnight when you sleep. So, and then glutamine in that, and then glutamine during my workout as well in my EAA shake.
So you take hydrolytes, do you?
Or electrolyte powder.
Electrolyte, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got to look into that myself. Good source of whey protein.
Yes.
You like whey protein isolate?
I like isolate because it digests easier for me. It's the fastest form of digesting protein, so it doesn't have the blends in it that casein or normal protein blends have. So for people that are lactose intolerant too, isolate's usually a better, easier digestible version. And the fact that consuming isolate post workout, it shuttles the nutrients straight to where they need to go. So it's the fastest form of absorbing protein. So in terms of benefits for muscle protein synthesis, isolate's probably the best for post-workout.
And a good vitamin stack with omega-3s.
Essential and very overlooked, especially, in enhanced bodybuilders especially. Vitamins to correct your lipid profiles, keep your blood pressure under control, bad cholesterol, things like that. I think having a good vitamin stack is essential, especially omega-3s, which help brain function, and enough short chain fatty acids, which are going to be very beneficial for your cognitive function. So
I think I need to improve my vitamin intakes. A few more questions. What happened to the fishing highlights today?
Fishing highlights?
Yeah, it's fucking finished January 2022. No more fishing. And who fishes in a surf beach today?
What do you mean?
Fishing in Cronulla?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the gutters.
I did not know that. Fish like they hang around in the surf?
Yeah.
So what do I know?
So this is a bit
I can't catch fish.
This is a bit of education outside of bodybuilding. So you know why surfers love surf beaches so much? So the way that they get in using these systems called gutters, right? Which are where the waves break and then reform. In between that, it's called a gutter. That's where a current pulls, and that's where there's generally a hole, like a drop in the water, and that's what fish use as a channel to swim because it's faster in that channel. They're not going against the current, right? And that's what surfers also use to get out to the water, to get out in the water quicker. So they're called gutters. When you know how to find those gutters in the beach, that's where the fish are. So all those fish use those channels to swim in. So yeah.
Well, you stopped January 22 there. But
I went fishing in Queensland actually 2 weeks ago. I caught a big Maori cod. So
yeah, we need it up there.
Yeah, I know.
And what happened to motivational quotes? That finished up in the 24th of the 3rd, 2023 there. Day after your birthday. There was not many very motivational quotes.
Yeah.
What's going on?
They're going to come back. They're going to come back with a business on that as well. So
sad stuff, mate. Made me very sad. I was expecting some modern stuff.
Yeah, I'll come back.
All right, before we go over the body, 2 more things. All right, we're going to go over the body. I saw, one second. I saw this. I saw that this Christmas, are you in front of the Suvla?
Yeah.
Cooking or barbecuing a gyros, I'm assuming.
Suvla, pork neck and lamb.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
So are you a good barbie guy? And your apron says you're the king of the Suvla. Is this true?
Right. This is very true.
Is this true?
I have a big love for my barbecues at home and Dad's barbecues that I use. So,
yes.
Yeah, he's been doing the Suvla for us for a very long time since we were kids, and he's taught me how to do it. So, I've even put on Suvla at work before, which was good. We brought in a little charcoal barbecue, had the lamb on the chicken and the lamb on the spit. So, yeah, I love it. On occasions, Christmas, Easter, I love doing it. So
okay.
Yeah.
Being you're young, can you do the Zorba? Can you do the Bekiko?
I used to do Greek dancing when I was young.
Did you do Greek dancing?
I did Greek dancing as well.
So then you know the Zorba, you know the Bekiko.
Zebekiko, yeah. Zebekiko you make up on the spot.
Oh, it's the drunk man's dance.
Yeah, it is. That's right. But yes, I knew how to do the Zorba. I'll probably forget now, but yeah.
Do you have dancing in Macedonia, Chris?
Yeah.
Is it Greek dancing?
It's similar. Similar to ours.
Have you got Zebekiko? Was it like the Greek dance? Oro?
Yeah, it's a little bit better.
Oh, better.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like Alexander the Great. Let's go over the body. All right, we're going to go over the body. I'm going to give you a body part. all you got to give me is one exercise, sets and reps. That's it.
Yeah.
All right. Traps.
Shrugs, 3 sets, 15 to 20 reps.
Okay. Now we're going with delts now. Rear delts.
Rear delt pec deck fly.
Yeah.
2 sets, 10 to 15.
Pec deck fly rear. 2 sets. 2 sets of.
10 to 15.
Okay. I'm thinking about this myself. Medial delts.
Cable raises, D handle, cable raises. Again, I'd probably do 3 sets, 8 to 12, because I want to go heavy on that movement. Yeah.
Front delts.
Front delts, incline dumbbell chest press with a high incline.
High incline. Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually very good for the front delts.
How many? Sorry, sets and reps.
I'd only do 1 top set, 1 down set. 2 sets.
2 sets.
8 to 12.
Back.
Bent over rows. Love them.
Yeah.
I've been doing them on the Smith machine recently. So
Yeah, bent over rows.
Smith machine, bent over rows. Again, 2 sets, 8 to 12 compound.
Yeah.
Keep it low.
Chest.
Incline machine press. 2 by 8 to 12.
Abs.
Hanging leg raises. 3 by 10 to 15.
I got to start doing abs again. I stopped doing abs because everyone kept telling me abs you get in the kitchen. So
Oh, that is true.
I stopped training.
That is true.
And I just need to be better in the kitchen. Bicep.
Machine preacher curl unilateral.
Yeah.
3 sets, 10 to 15.
Tricep.
Tricep. Let's go with dips.
Tips.
I like good tricep dip. Yeah. Higher reps on the 2 sets, 15 to 20.
Okay. Forearms.
Reverse wrist curls
Reverse wrist.
are good with a barbell.
Yeah.
So they're quite good. With a dumbbell on your knee.
Yeah.
Reverse wrist curls with a dumbbell on your knee. I used to do them actually in my program. My coach had them in. I think 3 sets, 10 to 15. Oh no, 15 to 20 somewhere there. Yeah.
Yes, at the beginning, remember, Chris, everyone we talked about forearms, they go, they don't do it. Everyone,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know, but everyone talks about, how about beginning with traps? They do traps, they do traps. But obviously, these guys are bikini competitors.
That's physique, no.
Okay, there, you said that.
Oh, no.
There goes all your friends. Quads.
If you can do them, actually no. I like hack squats. I like hack squats.
Hack squats, yep.
Yeah, hack squats are probably my favorite.
Sets
The proper
reps.
one, the one where it's over your shoulder.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Set reps.
2 sets. I'd go 6 to 10 and then 10 to 15 on the. So first set is going to be your top set. Second set would be a down set.
Hammies.
Hammies, RDLs. 2 sets, 10 to 15.
Glutes.
Glutes, I'd probably go with a hip thrust
Yep.
on the Smith machine or a machine.
Set reps.
3 sets, 10 to 15.
Calves.
Donkey calf raise, I like it because it's a bit more stable for me than a standing calf raise. A bit higher reps, I'd go probably 3 sets, 15 to 20.
Tibialis. That's the front of the calf.
Oh, but tip raises.
Tib raises.
If you have a machine do tip raises, the little machines, I know,
Yeah.
what's his, Pork Cities has one in his gym at Pato Performance. The little tip raise.
Does he?
machine.
Yeah, Pork Cities does.
yeah,
Yes. And also Hardcore Gym had one.
Oh, did they?
In Carlton they did. Yeah.
So, tip raises. Probably, again, high reps for those little exercises because they're fast twitch muscle fibers. So I'd go, 15 to 20 for a couple of sets.
Okay. Well, time to promote yourself. Where can people find you? And tell us about your coaching business. So go ahead.
Definitely. So metamorphphysique.com is the website. Instagram is George_metamorph, where we post weekly content a couple of times a week. Trying to educate everyone on, the right way and the proper way to, safely diet and achieve positive and long-lasting transformations. No crash dieting. So we don't advocate any of that. Give us a like and a follow. Make sure you like Muscle Talks podcast as well and give Steve a follow.
Oh, mate, that's very kind of you.
Yeah, and it was a pleasure being on the podcast. Thank you very much. We had a great chat.
I hope you enjoyed it, mate. Yeah, it was very good. I guess I'll see you in heaven and we'll work out who's ICN and who's
We'll work
IFBB.
out at the gates.
We'll work it out at the gates.
See if we're deserving of it. Steve, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
awesome, man. Thank
Awesome.
you.